Hello. Hello, Mary. Hello, boss lady. A dedicated penny pal. What a great thing to say. Thank you so much. That's lovely. I think everybody recommended SKR. Basically, I felt like I was the only one who never heard of them. Apparently Mary was with me there, but hi, BGP OJ3G, the penny pill. That's right. You were the original penny pill person. I remember that. Nice to see you. Yeah, how's everybody doing? I am in a little bit of a better headspace today. I have had rather a lengthy conversation with my landlady about the dire situation of the construction across the lane. And we have come to an agreement for now that involves a reduction on my rent, which is extremely welcome. And we're gonna see how it goes. So I have discovered that if I put on both my computers with white noise playing full blast on both computers, and I put on my headphones, I can stand it without wanting to commit a felony. So, hi, John Smith. Nice to see you. So my rent, she's going to reduce my rent to make up for the extreme disruption of my life. And I was telling her how difficult it is because, like, for the last 3 days, I've been having to run away from my house to get out of here because the noise is so oppressive. And even with the white noise on to drown out the crashing, bashing of the heavy equipment, that's a lot, right? To have that, like, it's got to be on full blast. So that's a lot to deal with too. And I was saying, but I can't, like, Apple's, my little dog, is not going to be okay with me just leaving him here and I'm going to go out and hang out at the library or hang out at the coffee shop or whatever. So she has offered that I can leave him at her place, that I can come over anytime it gets to be too much for me, and that she's going to reduce my rent. And it's a significant reduction that will make a significant difference to me, and will make some of the disruption less aggravating, if you know what I mean. Like, I was just saying to her, I'm like, I can't be in a position where I'm feeling constantly hard done by, because that's going to lead to resentment and anger, and it's not good for my mental health to be in that state, basically. So yeah, so that's where I'm at today. Things are looking a little better. I have left a message with the person at City Hall who is in charge of handing out the permits for these people that are doing this project over here. Not yet. I'm just talking about my my construction situation, Billie Jean, and the conversation I had with my landlady today. So all in all, I feel better about things. The person that I talked to at City Hall reminded me that there could be significant periods of time where there's not much going on, because right now the only permit that they have is for the demolition. Hi, Cabby. And once the demolition is over, they have to get another permit for the next phase, right? So there can be delays, right? So there could well be periods of time where there's no disruption for, a month or more at a time. So I'm not running off half-cocked, and that's where I'm at first. So yeah, I'm in a considerably better headspace today than I was when I started off yesterday. And I'm sure you can all see this is Nancy Brophy. This is her mugshot from the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office. So, yes, I had a conversation with my landlady, Billie Jean, and she has offered me a significant reduction in my rent, as well as the offer to sort of come and use her house whenever I want, and to leave my little dog over there if I need to just get out for a few hours and go, to the library or to a coffee shop somewhere where I can get away from the chaos. So I feel significantly better today. So thank you all for listening. You guys perked me up enormously yesterday too, just having the opportunity to kind of vent a little bit about the situation. So yeah, so this is Nancy Brophy. I gather it is great news, boss lady. Thank you. I really appreciate everybody's wonderful support on here too. I am immensely grateful. So yes, lots of both my computers on full blast with the white noise and a pair of headphones means that I can manage, while I'm having my morning coffee without wanting to commit a felony. Yeah, so moving on. So thank you all so much for your kind support. I really appreciate that. So I thought we would just do a little bit of background about Nancy, because I understand, like, boss lady for one doesn't know a lot about this case. It is really great news. My landlady's just really genuinely a lovely person. And she doesn't want me to go either, right? We were both made very unhappy by the situation. So I feel like we came to a good understanding today. And then we had a big old, natter about the state of the world and all that too. So that she's a great person to talk to. She's a lot like me in terms of, like, I don't really do small talk. You know what I mean? I'm not great at small talk. I mean, I can kind of talk to anybody, but also I find small talk really boring, right? Like, I want to fix the world immediately. As soon as I start a conversation, I want to start talking about all the things we can do to fix the world, or whatever my observations are. But I find small talk very boring. So we had a really good natter. She recommended a couple of books, and she did her first. I know I was telling you about what an amazing person she is. She was actually yesterday doing her first ever. She was invited to be the keynote speaker at a Zoom meeting, a book club type thing, and she was really excited about it. She's trying to get her fourth book. She's trying to get her third book published and her fourth book written at the moment, and she's 91 years old. If any of you are looking for inspiration for post-retirement life. Gregorian chants. That's a great suggestion, Billie Jean. I am going to try that. I really like Gregorian chants too. The super federal kind of stuff going on. Oh, I don't know, John Smith. This is news to me. Sound baffles to attach outside the house. It's a significant. She's cut my rent by a third, one entire third. So it's a significant. Yeah. She's a going concern, boss lady. She literally is out there doing walkathons to raise money for charities in her 90s. I am not kidding you. Sound attenuating curtains. Yeah, I was thinking about that, John Smith. That had occurred to me that I could get some heavy curtains to hang up. One of the problems is going to be in the summer, because I'm in a garage I'm in a little apartment above a garage, and as far as insulation goes, it's very minimal. So if it's 20 degrees outside, it's 30 degrees inside. That's Celsius for you guys. So yeah, if it's like 70 degrees outside, it's 90 degrees inside. So I can't not have the windows open. So that we're going to have to figure something out around. But as long as the landlady's willing to kind of work with me, and cutting me a break on the rent is going to make me feel a lot less resentful, which is a big issue I don't like. I find resentment, anger, bitterness, all of those feelings are very hard on the system. So yeah, I will look into the curtains. Awesome. Okay, so let's talk about Nancy, unless anybody's got other things they want to talk about, fun things that happened in their life that they want to share. Yeah, so the baffles attached to the inside of the outside walls. I used to use them a lot when I built churches. Oh, you built churches. Wow, that's very cool. Everybody in my chat seems to have some amazing hidden talent. You used to build churches. Wow. Okay, so let's talk about Nancy. So yeah, I thought I would do just a little background on her. There is her. That's her mugshot. Now let me go over here. She is a romance author. Oh, I have to remove that one. I have to add that one. So this is her Amazon page. So I thought we would just read her Amazon page a bit. So the about, right? This is her biography. One can assume that she wrote it. So that picture, I don't know how you can see it, but it's obviously was taken a few years before she was became a celebrated murderess. So about the author. Nancy Brophy is an award winning author whose first published work was a pamphlet for the University of Houston entitled, I think the word she was looking for is titled, Between Your Navel and Your Knees. The subject matter dealt with the changing mores of sexuality in the 60s and 70s. Much of her career has been focused on nonfiction with articles published in trade journals and technical writing for HR departments. But her true love was storytelling. So this, you can tell she wrote this because it's terrible. Eventually she wrote a novel, which is still available somewhere under her bed. So there you go. That is an example of Nancy humor, and you're going to see lots of that. In 2003, she joined her local chapter of Romance Writers of America and learned the craft of story writing. Since then, she has published both romantic suspense novels and 2 novellas under her name and others. Her stories are about pretty men and strong women, about families that don't always work, and about the joy of finding love and the difficulty of making it stay. So, yeah, I think you can get a feel for what her books are like from that, but have a look at the books. So she does this whole, it's their romance novels, right? They're, um, cookie cutter plots and that kind of thing. So they're all, the series is Wrong Never Felt So Right. And so it's like the wrong brother and the wrong cop and the wrong SEAL and the wrong husband. And they are all Navy SEALs, all of them, mostly shirtless. Who's this guy? The wrong hero, the girl most likely to Hell on the Heart, Nancy Brophy. Yeah, so yeah, you can kind of see. The Kindle version is $0. So yeah, I'm kind of surprised that she is still on here, honestly, because she is a convicted murderer. But anyway, I'll just read you the blurb from the back of one of them so you can get the idea. So, The Wrong Brother, Wrong Never Felt So Right, Book 1. The small Texas town of Riggers is a safe haven where nothing happens. At least that's the way Navy SEAL Zach Pritchard remembers it. He's home on leave and determined to avoid his brother's girlfriend, Chloe LaRousse. If he can just walk his sister down the aisle and quickly leave, everything will be great, or so he thinks. Except his brother's life is in the toilet. Gordy dropped out of college and picked up a gig promising quick money and is only a bit illegal, right? Like that, the English is terrible there. And everyone is a little vague about the status of Chloe in Gordy's life, including the 2 of them. Chloe is not at all the woman Zach remembers. The girl who figured prominently in his fantasies for the past couple of years is not a graduate student with a hermetic lifestyle majoring in sex education. He's stunned to find a woman with an in-depth knowledge of sexual technique and yet knows nothing about men or relationships or life beyond the classroom. Many situations involving thwarted ambitions, fraternal competition, drugs, and race cars work out well. Unfortunately, this one has some problems. Yeah, so that's Nancy Brophy. And yeah, she murdered her husband. She also wrote an article called How to Kill Your Husband, or How to Murder Your Husband, or How to Get Away with Murdering Your Husband, or something like that. And it's basically, the article is basically like, you can stab him, except that's kind of messy. You can shoot him, but then you need to have a gun. You can poison him, but like, it's not, she just literally lists the ways that you can murder someone. So that's the entire article. Yeah, so that's Nancy Brophy. And then I thought, so there's her mugshot again, but I thought I would just read this little article because it gives us the kind of the story in a nutshell. I decided not to go through I don't really want to go through the whole trial. I was thinking that I would cherry pick the good bits, but really the best bits are Nancy testifying. And there's several hours of it, so we don't really need to watch the whole trial. And if I read you this, then you'll have the basic lowdown of what actually happened. So yeah, the article is titled, "Everybody okay over there?" Yes, you could have been good looking. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Novelist wrote How to Murder Your Husband, then her spouse was ruthlessly gunned down. 7 years after romance novelist Nancy Crampton Brophy wrote an essay called How to Murder Your Husband, she shot hers to death. A Portland cooking school appeared to be the site of a fatal robbery, but the truth was far more unsettling and sinister. On the morning of June 2nd, 2018, first responders rushed to the Oregon Culinary Institute, where beloved 63-year-old instructor Daniel Dan Brophy seemed to have suffered a heart attack. EMS personnel determined Brophy had actually been shot twice in the back, and he was pronounced dead at the scene. 2 9mm semi-automatic shell casings were collected. Chef Brophy was an encyclopedia of food, former Oregon Culinary Institute instructor Bikram Vaidya recalled during the November 9th premiere of Oxygen's new series, Killer Grannies. He had so much knowledge in his brain. So what happened to Daniel Brophy? After a SWAT team secured the premises, investigators talked with students. Detectives decided after the interviews, said Killer Granny's host June Squibb, that no students were responsible. There were no signs of forced entry. It appeared that the killer had come in through an unlocked door. Around this time, the victim's wife, Nancy Crampton Brophy, then 67, arrived at the school. She had come to the scene because she had heard that there was some kind of a situation at the school, the Portland Police Bureau Detective Darren Posey said. Investigators recorded their conversation when they informed Nancy of her husband's death. When they asked her if Daniel had any enemies, she said, "In 25 years of teaching, I have never heard him badmouth a student one time." She claimed they were happy together. She tells them, "We lived a quiet life. Dan had no enemies. They both loved to cook, and they would take romantic trips, just the two of them." Nancy expressed anger to the cooking school, according to Killer Grannies, about its lack of security cameras in the building. We'll hear more about that later. Police initially suspected that the crime was a robbery gone wrong, but Daniel still had cash and credit cards in his wallet, and nothing was taken from the school. So evidence pointed to a targeted hit. A little bit of history. So a preacher's son from North Dakota, Daniel developed an interest in food and the American West at an early age. Dan had a first marriage that was tumultuous at best. They had a son together, but Dan left and was not involved with his son's life until around high school. Raised in Wichita Falls, Texas, Nancy decided to pursue a career in catering. She met Dan in culinary school. She left a successful business, per Sparling, to write romance novels. So yeah, I think she had a catering company. She later became the president of the Rose City Romance Writers in Portland. Very few people in the Rose City Romance Writers were full-time writers, said author Heidi Joy Trethaway. Most of them, like Nancy, were aspiring. Nancy and Dan didn't have children, but she embraced his son Nathaniel and Nathaniel's kids, according to Killer Grannies. Nancy wanted to be the Uber grandma, said Sparling. She would say, "Let's go on a family trip to the zoo or the garden." She really wanted to be there to have some fun times with the little ones. Nancy told investigators that she and Dan had bought a gun but had never used it. The crime lab confirmed that the Brophy firearm wasn't a match for the weapon that killed Dan. Investigators zeroed in on a van caught by a security camera leaving the area right around the time Dan Brophy was shot. Nancy insisted that she had not been at the school the morning of the shooting, but detectives were struck by the fact that the van looked a lot like Nancy's vehicle. And then clues from the autopsy. The medical examination showed that Dan was likely shot first in the back. The second bullet blasted his chest. "It seemed very personal," said Portland Police Bureau Detective Anthony Merrill. "It seemed like somebody went there with vengeance." At a vigil for Dan, Nancy suggested that his ex-wife might be seeking revenge on him. Detectives pursued this lead and found that Nancy had misled them. That raised a red flag, and another one soon arose. Nancy asked police 4 days after the murder to sign a document stating she wasn't a suspect so that she could collect on the insurance. Detectives promptly explored the Brophy's financial situation. They found that the couple was struggling to make ends meet and that Nancy stood to collect $800,000 from Dan's life insurance benefits. I believe she actually stood to gain $1,600,000 ultimately. Nancy Crampton Brophy arrested for husband's murder. Police learned that in 2011, Nancy had written a blog called How to Murder Your Husband. It was about a woman solving her problems by getting rid of the man in her life. I don't know to what degree she lost herself in her fiction, said Trethewey. Was Nancy using her books as a trial ground? The content intrigued investigators. It was apparent she had knowledge of firearms, said former prosecutor for Multnomah County, and police procedures and how somebody might carry out a murder. 3 months after the fatal shooting, Nancy was arrested. Investigators learned that 6 months before the murder, Nancy made an online purchase of a ghost gun, a homemade firearm without serial numbers, untraceable by authorities. When it proved to be too difficult to assemble, she began researching Glock guns online and purchased a 9mm Glock at a gun show in February of 2018. When ballistics couldn't match Nancy's gun to the crime, authorities went back to video of the suspicious van to see what else lined up. Through a painstaking process, officials were able to get enough of the license plate to confirm it was Nancy's vehicle. After a long delay due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Nancy's trial began in April 2022. During the proceedings, Overstreet laid out a theory of her motivation. I said, isn't it possible that what really drove Nancy to kill was that she wanted a change of lifestyle, he recounted, and Dan couldn't give that to her. At the end of the 8-week trial, Nancy was found guilty of second-degree murder. She was sentenced to life in prison. Yeah, so that's Nancy Brophy. She's a real piece of work. She definitely the whole thing with Am we good? Am I good? Can you guys hear me? I think my internet went a bit wonky there. Yeah, so she bought the gun. She bought the ghost gun. And then she bought the Glock. And then she bought a spare barrel for the Glock. And so she shot him. And then she switched out the barrel. And she threw away the barrel. Yeah, sorry. I hope y'all caught that. Yeah, so she bought a ghost gun. For some reason, she couldn't make the ghost gun work. So then she bought a real Glock. And then she bought another barrel for the Glock that she had. And then she shot Dan, threw away the barrel, put the clean one on, and then they couldn't match it. Eventually, that was all figured out. But it was actually pretty clever. But she was not clever in terms of her digital footprint, right? So they found it all eventually in her Google searches and all her internet searches and her internet purchases and the they were able to place her at a shooting range, all kinds of stuff. It'll come out in the testimony. But yeah, she is a character, so get ready. Hi, Carolyn. Nice to see you. Glad you could make it. So we're just going to start the, if you want the background, I did a little bit of a lead up to Nancy Brophy, but we're just about to start. So this is the direct examination by the defense, right? So here we go. Get ready. because she is a wild ride.
Clerk will give you an oath.
I'll have you please raise your right hand. Under the penalty of perjury, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, then you may be seated and you may remove your mask.
I think we need to do something about the hearing thing too. Yeah, can we get a hearing so that
Sure.
Yeah, she has special needs right from the beginning, but I like the way it's striped in the background, and it kind of looks like she's in a cell already, which is definitely where she belongs.
you can hear me?
Yep.
Oh,
That one straight up there with her. I can help counsel.
I think you can probably unplug it. Oh, hang on, I have to disconnect myself.
Yeah, she definitely has this weird attitude towards this whole thing, right? It's like she's been waiting for her day in court, and she is she acts almost as though she was on the stand for a long time. It's hours. This video right now is it's 2 hours and 47 minutes, and that's just the morning, and then she's on again in the afternoon, and then the next day is that's still with the defense, and then the next day is the cross-examination. So, or maybe the cross starts partway through the afternoon, but it's quite long. But she's very funny. So here we go.
This device a little farther from the microphone so it doesn't have to be
Okay,
in your back.
okay.
And then because we're being recorded, once you're set up, if you could please state and spell your first and last name, please.
I will.
Thank you.
My name is Nancy Brophy. That's NancyCrampton-Brophy.
All right. When defense is ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let me know if you can't hear me. I will. Because you can't read my lips. Sorry. Where'd you grow up? I grew up in Wichita Falls, Texas. And how
Get used to that laugh. You're going to hear a lot of it.
big is Wichita Falls, Texas? It's 100,000, but a lot of that is the air base that's there. Okay. When did you move to Oregon? 1990 or 1991. And why did you move to Oregon? Because I wanted to take a year off, and I thought going to culinary school sounded like a whole lot more fun than saying, "Oh, I'm just taking a year off." Okay. Do you remember the first time you saw Dan Brophy? Oh, yeah. Tell me about it. Culinary school in Western Culinary, which was where I was,
Yeah.
had a program where 101 was the first class you took, and it was 6 weeks long, and you were separated out from the rest of the students. So when we joined the students, Dan had been hired either that day or the day before. So it was like we all came together at the same place at the same time. Had you ever met a guy anything like Dan Brophy before you met him? No, no. He was unique. Can you tell us 5 things about him, maybe 5 things that separated him from the pack for you? He was smart. He was really smart. And he was funny. I laughed all the time when I was with him, and a lot of people going, "What'd he say? What'd he say? What'd he say?" Because he was very dry in his sense of humor. He was kind. He was so kind. That probably won me over more than lots of other things might have. He not only thought outside the box, this man lived outside the box.
So by all accounts, Dan was an absolute prince of a human being. And why he loved her, I have no idea, but apparently he very much did. And she took complete advantage of that. But he was, from everything that is available out there, he was a proper light in the community. And he was extremely beloved, unlike Nancy.
He really did not operate going forward the way most of us did. But the thing I probably liked the best about him, he loved me. And if that isn't a big, I don't know, a big number one item, I don't know what is.
Right? She doesn't realize it, and I suppose a lot of people don't. But that's like a very narcissistic response, right? Because it's literally not about Dan at all. It's about her. I would love to get an update. Carolyn Breeding is saying she would like to get an update on Nancy, and I would too. I'd be very interested to see how she's getting on. This was 2022 when she was convicted. It was 2018. She was 67, so she's 71 during the trial, and that was 4 years ago. So yeah, she did. That's exactly what I think, right? With the little tearing up and everything. It's like, but what she's saying, right? To me, she's not saying the sadness isn't for Dan. The sadness is for her, right? That she had to sacrifice this guy who loved her in order to get his money so that she could, live a lifestyle that she thought that she was entitled to. Typical of these people, right? Who think that they're entitled to everybody else's hard work. Oh, she absolutely does. And it just goes on and on and on. She thinks that she's really charming and sweet, right? And then everybody thinks she's this lovely little old lady, little old sweet old Southern granny. Yeah.
And I loved him back.
How many years were you together?
24 years, 10 months, 2 days.
That's pretty precise. What are you measuring from?
We were friends for a couple of years before before our friendship moved further. I count it from the time our friendship moved further. You can be friends with a lot of people, but it doesn't count. Once you've said we're committing to others, people in other ways, then that's where I start the counting.
Did you and
So one of the fun things about this whole, I keep interrupting, I'm sorry, I must drive people crazy. One of the fun things about this is that both the defense lawyer and the prosecutor, they let her just ramble like a complete idiot. So it's quite entertaining.
Dan Brophy complete each other or balance each other out?
Completely. I'm a flawed person. Dan's a flawed person. We came together and made up one really good team. His weaknesses were my strengths. My strengths tended to be his weaknesses. And together, it just fit immediately and never stopped.
When the two of you were together, did you try to give him a platform from which he could do his very best work?
I did. Dan was bright. He was funny. He was lots of things, but he was also humble. And this is a man who needed a cheerleader. And I was his cheerleader. And this was not a one-way street. He was mine as well. But I helped him become more known for who he was. And because he would have just stayed in the shadows. He was that kind of guy. And he needed somebody to say, hey, this guy over here, he's really, really smart. You ought to listen to him,
We've heard a lot during this trial about Dan and his demeanor in social settings.
Mm-hmm.
Is it fair to say that Dan was socially unaware?
No. Dan was very aware. He just wasn't a big participant. He didn't need to fill in the blank space. A lot of times when there's a void in the conversation, somebody absolutely feels that they have to jump in and say something. Not Dan. Dan's perfectly okay with silence. So I'm sorry to say I lost the direction I was going there.
Okay,
I'm
let me
so
ask you this.
sorry. I was supposed to be paying attention, but I went off.
You.
Okay.
Let me stop you. You've been described as the one who had better social skills, or the front of the house, I think is what.
Been described as by who, I would be interested to say. But it's interesting the way that she is behaving as though she's like the um, the top guest on a on Johnny Carson or something, like where she's here to entertain the audience, not that she's here to answer to a charge of first degree premeditated murder. It's absolutely wild.
What someone said, and that Dan was back doing the cooking or preparing meals or being the quiet guy to the side. Were there times that Dan
Yeah.
helped you socially?
Oh, yeah. Oh, if someone said earlier, I'm a chatter, and I don't remember who said that, but I am a chatter, and I can just start running. And I never met a rabbit hole I didn't like. And there were times that Dan would come out and he would be so subtle and he would make this little move. And I knew I needed to calm down, back up, because he was trying to help me not run away with things.
Let me back you up.
Oh, sorry.
This move.
And actually he did it. He did it with this hand because it was a C for chill. And it was real calm. If you were standing next to him, you wouldn't have noticed it. But I was looking at him, I knew exactly what he meant.
You were on your way down a rabbit hole. He had a very subtle way of kind of trying to bring you back. We've heard that Dan didn't always lock doors. Is that true?
True.
We've heard that he collected stuff, lots of stuff. Is that true?
That's true.
What did you think about that?
One, well, this is a complicated answer. All right. I was perfectly okay with that. And the reason why I was perfectly okay with that is Dan didn't collect stuff that didn't mean anything. Everything he collected, he had a purpose for, or he could see a future purpose for. It wasn't like, he was gathering stuff he didn't need. It was gathering stuff that he could see he would need, maybe not today, but next week. To give you the best example of that, I was still catering in a kitchen I didn't own when Dan encouraged me and I did it, started purchasing equipment. By the time I had my own kitchen, because of Dan's help on this, I was ready to go. I had all the equipment I needed. I didn't have to stop and buy equipment. Dan had the kind of vision where you could see it further down the road. And he had that vision for me, and he had that vision for himself as well.
I think that's a good observation. It feels really performative. And throughout the whole thing, right, she does this. This is one of the things that narcissists just don't know how they're coming across, right? Is she doesn't realize that, like, normal couples don't think that each other is perfect, right? Like, I mean, after 24 years together, there are issues and things that don't always work perfectly, and that's perfectly normal. But she has to talk about him like she absolutely adored and revered him all the time, and he was this amazing and wonderful person. And I think it's much more likely that she was annoyed by his it sounds like he was a bit of a hoarder, to be honest, and it sounds like that really bugged her. I feel like it really bugged her, and that she's pretending to make herself seem like she was the adoring and loving wife, right?
Did Dan, what kind
Sorry.
Did Dan tend to, I don't want to use that word. Would it be fair to say that Dan's kind of working style, at least to the untrained observer, seemed chaotic?
Oh, yeah. Even to his wife, there were times when it seemed chaotic.
Was it?
No. He knew exactly what he was doing. He had a plan to get through to the end. And you may not have thought, if you were a stranger, that he really knew everything was going on, but I assure you, Dan knew everything that was going on. And later on, he'd start a conversation in which I thought, well, Dan wasn't even paying attention to that, but Dan knew every detail. That was not him.
Well, it's weird because he did not know every detail of your plan to murder him, did he?
He knew what was going on.
You said that you were flawed and that he completed you. Were there parts of your personality or parts of who you were that maybe could be frustrating to Dan or exasperating to Dan?
Oh, I think so. I mean, I don't think that I'm not coming into this situation perfect by any wild stretch of the imagination. And I am a person who has been self-employed all my life. And if I see an opportunity, I tend to leap in feet first. And Dan is not like that at all. Dan is research, research, research. Okay, we'll do this. And here's how we'll do it. Me, I'm already in the middle of the water before I think, maybe a plan would have been a good idea. What do you think?
How did you guys resolve those times when maybe your imperfections were coming to the surface?
Well, we talked, every night we sat in the hot tub and we talked, and uh, the TV wasn't on, and we were sitting there, uh, and he was giving me guidance on my catering company and what to do, and he was telling me about his day, and it's the frustrations we had were relatively minor, but I don't want to jump into a rabbit hole here, but there is an issue I could go to.
That's all right. We're going to try to keep you out of the rabbit holes.
Thank you.
Good luck with that.
In the nearly 25 years that you were with this man, did you ever doubt Dan Brophy's commitment to you?
No. And I never doubted his fidelity either.
Did you ever doubt your own commitment to him?
Never once.
What's it like to be without him now?
It's like you've lost an arm, like you're just not as good as you were when you were with him. When you were with him, you were the best you could be when you were together with him. And now it's like, yeah, I function, but there's something missing.
Weirdly, I expect that that might actually be somewhat true, because it seems like, I mean, as you go on and you hear more and more, you're going to see that Dan was, without him, she was literally nothing. And although she may have imagined that she was the one keeping the relationship together, with him gone, I mean, even before she was arrested, she would have been really missing that. Like, I'm guessing he gave good supply, right? And she would be really missing that. So I suspect that this might actually be genuine emotion in terms of missing him. Self-inflicted, of course, but
Do you think, looking back on it now, that you held up your end of your marriage?
Oh, I do.
right?
I do. And I would tell you, if Dan was here, he'd tell you the same thing. And he would tell you he held up his end of his marriage, our marriage as well.
Did each of you marry the right person?
100%, absolutely.
They had a perfect marriage. It's literally the only perfect marriage ever in the world. But Nancy Crampton Brophy had it.
I want to shift gears for just a minute
Okay.
and talk to you about money.
Okay.
There's been a lot said during this trial about how you and Dan handled finances.
Mm-hmm.
At times, they sounded like maybe you were even being shamed by some of the expert witnesses. Did it feel that way to you?
I would say, when I told you Dan thought outside the box and maybe didn't even lived outside the box, yeah. But I would say I did the same. We made choices that other people wouldn't have made.
Did you graduate from the University of Houston?
I did.
What was your degree in?
Economics.
And did Dan have a college degree?
He did.
And what was his degree in?
Biology.
Was Dan a very, very, very smart man?
Yes, he was. Probably one of the smartest men I've ever known.
Between the two of you, did you know how to run a business?
I did.
Did he know how to run a business?
It was a learning thing, and he learned with me as we went along.
And between the two of you, did you know how to run a household?
I did.
No. Maybe you did things a little different than other folks. Is that true?
Oh, yeah.
financially, did things just kind of go off the tracks for you and Dan somewhere between 2014 and 2017?
Okay, I'm doing, I'm blabbing along while I'm muted. Sorry about that. I was just talking about, no, you're not frozen. That was me talking while I was on mute. Sorry. I was just talking about saying that I think that he's the only man that ever loved her, probably. And that she, you know, how she talked about how they completed each other. I would guess that he, she had most of the flaws, and that without him, she would literally be nothing. And because she's a narcissist, she couldn't see the truth of that, and she thought that she would be better off with his money and without him. And she is now facing the reality of like being like Sarah Boone, right, where she's like nobody is on her side, nobody loves her, and it's a terrible situation to be in, and I can feel for her for that, but it is very much self-inflicted. And yes, I am sorry for being such a dope. Yes, carry on. Sorry. Here we go.
Yes, they did. It was a series of things happened that all came together at the wrong moment, you know.
Let me ask you this. Was there a reduction in the income that the two of you were making?
Well, that was one of the first things that happened. Dan had a second income, almost a second job, because he taught classes all over town. He taught a lot for In Good Taste. He taught a lot for Portland Nursery. He taught a lot for Bob's Red Mill. In addition, he taught private classes in people's homes, as demonstrated by Vicki Schmalz, who talked about the fact that he did classes in her home for people. He did this constantly. We had a strong second income. I don't know if it was 14 or 15, but In Good Taste closed. Bob's Red Mill decided to remodel, and it changed the ownership from Bob to the employees. The Portland Nursery decided that they wanted to go in a different direction and did. So it was just a series of things that just kind of all in the same small period of time shut down that money.
Well, let me ask you this. In 2000,
Did anybody notice how she talked about it as we had a real strong second income when it was Dan who had the real strong second income? And after it comes up again, right? When this stuff doesn't work out, he takes another job. So he's literally working all day at the Culinary Institute teaching, and then he's going out in the evenings and chefing. So that they can basically just manage to barely keep up with the payments on their mortgage because she is an out of control spender.
2014, were you just about, was it 2014 or 2015 that you were about to turn 65?
I turned 65 in 15.
Okay. As you were looking at 65, did you want out of selling life insurance?
I did. I did. And that was even more emphasized by the fact when I was having eye surgery.
I'm going to bring you back to that.
I know, but I couldn't work. And all of a sudden, when you can't work, you suddenly realize there's no income coming in.
Okay. Oh, you mean from life insurance?
Right.
during the same period that your income dropped,
Mhm.
did
So I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but she is in at the point of when she murders Dan, she's now selling life insurance. So she sold her. She had a catering company and she sold that. Um, and so she sells life insurance. She works for, I think it's Obamacare, but anyway, yeah.
you have some changes in your expenses?
Yes, we had a bunch of unexpected medical expenses, but both on me and on Dan and on the dog, you know.
Dan's expenses were what?
Dan had a tooth that he had implanted, and it was $4,000. It wasn't, an outrageous amount of money, and normally we could have handled it. But if you put it on top of the fact that I just had $8,000 worth of eye surgeries, and the dog decided to have a seizure one night and to the tune of $2,000. It was just suddenly all of a sudden we had an unexpected, what is that? For uh, eight, four, two, $14,000 worth of unexpected expenses that year.
Okay, let me redirect you just for a second.
Sure.
You talked about your own medical expenses and your eye surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a time in early 2015 when you had an alarming experience?
Oh, yes.
What was that?
I'm driving and I reached up and I scratched my face. I must have done it this way. Okay, let me think about this. I reached up and scratched my face, and the tail lights of the car in front of me disappeared. And I'm going, oh, that's wrong, So I spent the next little while going, is this a fluke? Is this a fluke? And it wasn't a fluke. Now, perhaps if I'd been more rational, this would have made sense. But my mother had been diagnosed with macular degeneration, and I knew that by the time she died, she was practically blind. I am scared out of my mind that I'm going this direction. And so, yeah, I thought that was an alarming experience. However, because I was so afraid and because I was an idiot, you can choose either one. I didn't go to the doctor right away because I didn't want to know what he was going to say. My mother certainly never got better. And, I'm thinking, oh man. So it took me a while to go to the doctor to get it checked out.
Did you finally go see a doctor at the end of the summer?
I did.
And what did the doctor tell you was happening with your eyes?
Well, it was not quite that straightforward. One doctor sent me to another doctor who sent me to another doctor who sent me to another doctor. And finally he said, you have a macular hole.
It's interesting to me that the prosecution never makes any objections to this relevance. What is happening here, right? They seem to have figured out that Nancy's little gift of the gab is going to gift her butt right into prison, because she will inevitably give away too much. Yeah. Nancy's insanely lazy. It starts to all come out. I mean, she's telling the pretty story, right? This is the defense, right? This is friendly fire here. The prosecutor does not view everything in the light most kind to the defendant. But it's still very entertaining to watch all of this because she does give away so much, and it's clear how performative it all is. And isn't it weird that this is basically the same story that Lauren Matthias told on her Mormon Stories podcast about when she went momentarily blind and her father had that eye disease, and it turned out, et cetera, et cetera. Remember all that?
And so my left eye has, let me do a demo here, which will not show up, but the back of your eye looks like this, and there's a divot here that runs down. I think it's the ocular nerve. Well, what happens is when you have a macular hole, it gets worse and worse. It doesn't get better. And so he recommended surgery for me.
What happened when you showed up for surgery?
Another little exciting moment in my life. I showed up for surgery. I was with my mother-in-law, Karen Brophy, and they took a blood test and said, you can't have surgery today. You've got diabetes. So I went home. I went to another doctor who got me on medication for diabetes, and finally got to have the surgery by having shots of insulin so that we could get through it.
Before you had the surgery, were you nervous that that was going to be a risky surgery for you?
Yes.
Is that-
I'm from the generation who believes minor surgery is on someone else. On me, it's major surgery. And I was terrified. And I was terrified not only for me, but I was terrified for Dan as well.
That's where this is all going. I remember. Hi, Lynn TCP. Nice to see you. Poor Dan, he was a good guy. Yeah, we were saying earlier, seems, pardon me, by all accounts, it seems like Dan was an absolute prince of a man. Just a stand-up human being. Well, I think we're about to come up to, she's about to say, because she's just said, not only was I worried about myself, but I was worried for Dan. So I suspect we're about to hear all about how she prepared everything for him just in case anything went wrong for her while she was in surgery because she loved him so much. That's my guess. I've seen some of it before and I sort of remember, but yeah, here we go.
I want to stop you for just a second. Mr. Breton, could you show Ms. Brophy Exhibit 203? And could you maybe, do you recognize Exhibit 203?
I do.
What is that?
That is what's been known in this case as the Dearest Dan letter.
When did you write that?
In the middle of the night. I got up because I thought, if I don't come home, Dan doesn't know where stuff is. I'm the keeper of the stuff. And Dan doesn't even know what we have. Now, we haven't paid for all this stuff all these years to have him leave it on the table. And he needs to be protected as much as anybody else in this. And I thought if I could write it out for him clearly and tell him how I felt at the same time, that he would have a basis to start with,
Let me ask you about in the third paragraph of that letter, it says, I saw Larry Schneider and realized how difficult it would be if I died. More than anything, I'm afraid your life would be worse because you would leave money on the table and help that would help you get through this period. Who's Larry Schneider?
He was a client of mine whose wife died unexpectedly. And I had consolidated a lot of their insurance policies. She died before the 2-year period was up. And the insurance company slow walked the 2-year period. It's not fraud, it's something. It's the insurance companies have 2 years after you purchase the property after you purchase the policy to come back and say, we don't think this is right. You don't get this policy. So if you die after 2 years, they don't have that right. And people would ask me questions like, well, this policy will cover everything, but if I commit suicide. And I would say, no, if you commit suicide after the 2 years, now then.
Rabbit hole,
rabbit hole. I'm sorry.
Did Larry Schneider's wife died during a period of time in which the insurance company could contest the death benefit for her?
Yes.
Okay. And so during this time period, just before you wrote this letter, were you trying to help Mr. Schneider as he was sorting out?
I spent many evenings with Mr. Schneider, really doing nothing more than being a friend, and I pushed everybody I knew to push to get that insurance.
I mean, because that's the kind of person that she is, right? She's just a good and decent person
who spends her own time to help others less fortunate than herself.
Insurance, to get the insurance to work.
Okay. I want to talk to you about some other parts of this letter.
Mhm.
It looks like you've set out for him the policies that were in place on your own life. Is that right?
That's correct.
And you've given him the policy number, the amount, and I think there was a phone number there about who to call. Is that right?
That's right.
If you'll scroll down a little bit further, you gave him, let me stop right there. You gave him some advice about selling the house. What was that?
The one asset that we had was our house, and Portland market being what it was, we had some equity in it. And also we'd lived there at that point for 15, 16 years. So we had some equity in the house. And so I was giving him my opinion on what he needed to do. I knew Dan well enough to know that he would do what he wanted to do based upon what the circumstances were. But I was giving him my input up front. So if he,
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. Go ahead.
I think we've gone rabbit hole again.
No, that's okay. That went missing.
Oh, sorry.
Did you talk to him in that letter about the need to fix up the yard if he was going to sell the house?
Right.
And
So-
why is that? Why were you telling him that?
Because the backyard had gotten away from us. He was, and I don't know exactly how it happened. Maybe we had a particularly rainy season and it got away and we just never got it back. But we also had, this other stuff going on, the medical, the lack of income coming in. And, I think we just.
Dan was working every hour that God sends to bring money into the house, and she was doing nothing. So the yard got away from them, is what really happened, in my opinion.
Lost focus. And so it had gotten away from us. So we knew in order to get what the house was worth out of it, we had to clean up the backyard.
Okay. The other thing you say there is, I understand you think you can live in a tiny house. Why did you say that?
Well, when Dan and I started talking about we were going to sell the house because and we were going to make some adjustments, Dan said, you know what we could do? Because part of the problem thing was we talked about subdividing the property, which would make it more valuable. And Dan said, we could live on the back half and get two tiny houses. One I could have and have my stuff everywhere in it, and one that was tidy that you would want to live in. And I thought, Dan, you can't live in a 4-bedroom house. You certainly can't live in a tiny house.
Oh God, I find it so hard to listen to her talking about them like they were this happy couple who were so in tune with each other and sitting every night out in the hot tub discussing their day with no television on because they were just so like that. But she was literally planning to murder him for quite a long time before she actually did it. Yes, she was driving around all over Hell's Half Acre, writing the same novel over and over and over again. While Dan worked every hour that God sent, and she plotted to murder him. It's so sickening to listen to her when you think about what she was actually doing while he was in good faith having these conversations with her and trying to find a way out of the financial difficulties that she put them in. It's all spin with this one.
But we talked about the tiny house situation for quite a while.
And you thought that was a silly idea.
I did.
Okay, let's scroll down a little further if we could. I want to get to the part where you talk about your possessions. I think you have to go back up, if you would, Mr. Breton, to the first page. I can't think of anything I care enough to worry about.
Oh, I can't except the wedding crystal and my jewelry. And
So in 2015, were those really the only possessions that you had that you thought really mattered much?
They were. Everything else was just stuff.
Okay. You and Dan made choices early in your marriage, is that right?
It is.
Could Dan have taken a job, for instance, as an executive chef and made a lot more money?
He could have. He
Uh,
could have.
There was testimony from the OCI folks saying that they I think they got salaries like in the $50,000 to $60,000 range, and those just never changed over the years.
Right. And she's going to act like she admired him for that. When in fact, I bet you anything she was pissed as hell at him for not taking the high pressure, high profile job that would give her the lifestyle that she wanted, which was that of an American expat over in Portugal.
It's true.
If Dan had wanted to make money, with his skills and his intelligence and certainly as well known as he was, could he have made a lot of money if he wanted to?
He could have. He could have, but it would. Everything is in life is a trade-off, and he would have had to have given up things that he loved, like the garden. But more than anything else, he loved teaching, and he was good at it. And he was the sort of guy who, when you came out of his class, you knew you could identify the difference between rosemary and something else. You knew your herbs, you knew your product, and you knew your techniques. He loved teaching. He I, he loved helping people who came to him and said, I'm not getting the math on this. Can you show me? Uh, so, so
Thank you, Carolyn. That's lovely of you. I really appreciate that. Everybody is so generous with their time and everything here. I'm very grateful for you all. Highland TCP, you were here before, were you not? You must have left us again. Yeah, right. She gets to like to me what I see in this dynamic between her and Dan is that he is who she pretends to be, right? And she's able to take her cues and give this sort of believable performance as this altruistic, community oriented kind of person, because she can take those cues from Dan, because Dan genuinely is that person. That's how I read this, because I don't think that she was happy. My guess would be that she was pissed that he didn't take the high paying job. And also exactly, that's actually what I stopped to say, Billie Jean, was that she's talking about how he would, how he loved to help others. And it probably made her furious. Exactly. Like, he's my supply. He's supposed to be over here, filling my needs. I would bet money that you're spot on there. Yeah. She's a piece of work. She's a real proper piece of work. She's fun to watch, though. I gotta tell you, she's fun to watch. She's endlessly entertaining in the way that only these people can be.
Yeah, he could have made a lot more money doing something else. He could have been an executive chef for any number of restaurants in town, but we chose happiness over anything else.
Right?
And so if he's happy and he's not making as much money, that didn't bother us.
Yeah, he's the one who's bringing in the money, right? So she had to settle for what he was willing to do, because who else, as Mary pointed out, how many men has she had in her life? Who else is going to do this for her? Maybe he helped others to get away from her. I don't know. Maybe he did. I get the feeling, and I mean, I guess it's not, I don't have all the information, but I get the feeling that she had him duped. That he had not seen through her mask. I mean, it always slips. These people, it always slips. So he must have seen mask off moments at some point, but perhaps put them down to something other than psychopathic murderer.
I was totally okay with what he contributed to the household, and the fact he wasn't working. 80 hours a week to bring that money in, that we were together, you know?
We're going to get to this in just a minute. I don't want to talk about it now, but you also made some financial choices
I
to
did.
do things that were interesting to you rather than make money.
I did.
And did Dan have any quarrel over that?
Not at all. He felt the same way I did.
Did the two of you, just kind of as a married couple, prioritize joy or fantastic experiences over things?
Mhm.
Is that true, even though Dan had lots of things?
Well, yes, but that becomes much more apparent when you have a house fire and you realize how little things matter. Oh man, we love to travel together, and that was, we were at our best when we traveled together. Uh,
I'm
we
gonna
love
take
being together. Period.
That's the lifestyle she wanted, right? She wanted to be going on fancy holidays and stuff, right? Um, and RV culture, was not for her.
I'm taking you back.
I know you are.
Taking you back. I'm taking you back between 2014 and 2017 when the financial wheels have come off.
Okay.
You've had this sudden loss of income
Mm-hmm.
and at the same time an increase in expenses.
Mm-hmm.
Did you think that was going to cause the economic upheaval that it did?
No, it was kind of like dominoes. I mean, one fell and then another fell, and you're thinking, really, you can stop falling now, and it didn't.
What did you do in the beginning? What did you do personally to address this upheaval?
I know what she did. She went out every morning and bought coffee from Starbucks. That was how she contributed.
Did you have some Band-Aid solution?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. The first year was easy to fix. The first year was a very small amount of money. And what we did was I wrote a life insurance policy on Dan, which immediately brought in a couple of $1,000s. The next thing I did was I borrowed money from an interest-free account that we had life insurance in. And that brought in enough money to get our house payments made, and it didn't cost us anything.
Let's talk first about that policy.
Okay,
Was that a policy that was taken out in November of 2016? Is that right?
that's right.
And how much was that policy? Do you remember?
250,000. I think it was 200, and there was some accidental on top of it.
And I don't remember which insurance expert, but it was suggested that you could have had a different $200,000 policy that would have cost you less.
Yes,
Is that true?
it's true.
Would you have gotten a commission on it?
Not the way it was suggested, but I wouldn't have gotten a commission, which would have been number one. And number two, it wouldn't have happened as quickly as the policy we chose. What he suggested was that we go through underwriting. And underwriting takes sometimes up to 6 months to make a policy come. We didn't have 6 months. We needed it to happen today. We had financial issues, and we were doing it more for the financial issue than we were doing to, so we'd have another insurance policy. So we didn't have the time to wait for fully underwritten.
Okay, so this brought a quick influx of cash into your home.
It did.
Boss Lady's saying, is she telling on herself here? And as far as insurance stuff goes, I literally don't know anything about it. So I cannot. I assume she's telling on herself because she's almost constantly telling on herself. But I don't know. I don't exactly understand insurance. She was selling insurance, and so she was somehow managing to, do a little bit of wheeling, dealing, shuffling things around to get some small amount of interest-free income to pay, to put out the immediate fire.
And if you continue to pay the premiums on that policy for a year, you'd be able to keep the commission. So was it kind of like a no interest loan?
That was exactly what it was like.
Now let's talk about this other quick Band-Aid that you talked about, the Forester's policy. Forester's is a weird kind of policy, right?
It is.
I shouldn't call it weird. It's just unique.
It is unique.
And does it have a savings component to it?
Yes, you pay a premium. Part of it goes for life insurance. Part of it goes to a savings account. And the savings account at the time we bought it, I believe, was 5.85%. Now, real frankly, if we'd put our money in savings in the bank, we would have gotten somewhere maybe 1% of interest. This gave us 5.85, and it was required savings. You might not have noticed this, but I'm betting you did, that I am not a saver. And so being forced to save helped me, and that was what we liked best about that. Also, we're
No,
not
but-
going down that rabbit hole.
It comes out eventually that she's mischaracterizing all of this. So there really was she wasn't saving any money because she kept taking the money out. So the forced savings she never saved anything.
When you put money, when you paid this premium, part of it went into the savings account, part of it went toward the life insurance benefit.
Exactly. And when we borrowed from the savings account.
So you're actually taking money out of your own savings account.
That's right.
And when you pay that back, do you pay it back with interest?
You don't ever have to pay it back. They don't care. It's, because you're continuing to put more money in each month, but they don't care if you don't pay it back. It doesn't bother them at all. I never got a done letter from them, said, really, you need to pay this back. It was interest free and we didn't pay it back.
So that was a good Band-Aid.
That was a good Band-Aid.
I want to kind of jump back in time because I can go down rabbit holes too. I want to talk to you
I've
about.
trained you well.
I want to talk to you about the earlier years of your marriage and talk about the financial stability kind of early on.
Okay.
There was testimony, I think, by Tiffany Couch regarding your 1999 tax return.
Mm-hmm.
After you got out of culinary school, did you start a business?
I did.
And what was its name?
Chef du Jour Catering.
And in 1997, what year did you begin?
When did we start? We started in 92.
Okay. And did it take a few years before that company started to make money?
Yes. They say if you start your own business, it takes 5 years. And at 3.5 years, we could see it. It wasn't there yet, but we could see that this was going to be a money-making thing.
Okay. And was it a money-making thing by 1997?
Yes, it was. 97, 98, 99, the year 2000, we made serious money. And serious enough money that we put $40,000 down out of Chef du Jour on a house. Now, Dan put down $10,000, which was a gift from his parents, but $40,000 of that came from Chef du Jour.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. We took a month-long trip to Asia. And in that month-long trip, we took a week-long cooking class in Bangkok at the Oriental Hotel. It was fabulous. That was a time in our lives where we had money and it was comfortable, and life is always easy when you don't have any external, issues.
And that's the life that she wanted. And if everything had gone the way she planned it, she would have had $800,000 in life insurance plus another nearly the same amount in like death benefits and social security payments and everything from Dan. And which would have been plenty for her to live the life of Riley until, for the rest of her life, basically.
It's not can you get through the good times, it's can you get through the bad times.
It's true. I want to talk about buying that house.
Okay.
You said that you took 40 grand out of the business
Mm-hmm.
as part of the down payment,
Mm-hmm.
and that Dan got 10 from his parents
Mm-hmm.
to help with the down payment.
Mhm.
When you first bought that house, were you both on the mortgage?
We were.
And how did you plan? What was your plan between the two of you?
So they put $50,000 down, and 16 years later, they only had $160,000 equity in the house. Just saying, hi, Suma. Hey, nice to see you. I'm so glad you're here. We are having, we're listening to Nancy Brophy tell her version of events. It's pretty entertaining.
For covering that mortgage?
The mortgage fell to me. One, I made more money, but two, it made more sense for me to pay the mortgage and for him to pay the other things. And that's how we worked it out.
When you first bought that house, you were on the mortgage. Were you also on the deed?
Yes.
And after 9/11,
Mhm.
what happened to the catering business?
Oh man, I was scrambling to keep it together. And I was watching fellow caterers drop like flies. I used to joke that the only business worse to be in at that point was to be a florist. Nobody was partying. People were putting things off like marriages and things like that. And I mean, I was really working to hold on to it. And then we had a couple of fortunate things happen, uh, that it allowed me to get through the rough period. But we tightened our belts and got through it.
Well, this period right after 9/11, when it all just kind of becomes difficult and stressful,
Mhm.
is that a period in which you refinanced the house in 2000?
Probably.
Let me show you. It's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit 205. Was there a time when you had a conversation with Richard Freimark that he sent you this property report?
Yes.
Okay, and if you'll scroll down, Mr. Breton. You can see that better than I can, Nancy, because those are tiny.
Mhm.
And if you can keep scrolling down. Stop. Go back. So it shows that in 1996
Mhm.
that the two of you buy that house. Does that make sense? Or is that 99? I
It's
can't see
99.
from here. Okay. And at that time, both you and Dan are on the deed.
Yes.
Is that right? And then all of a sudden, Nancy falls off the deed, and now it's just Dan Brophy.
Mhm.
And that occurs, is that in 2004?
Yes.
What happened in 2004 that caused you to want to refinance that house?
Oh, we were struggling to keep our business together, while the business may have been in
Yeah.
my name, it was our business because Dan was just as involved as I was. So yeah, we refinanced to keep from losing.
Yeah, we do a fair bit of sharing of that sort of stuff on these true crime channels. I've gotten stuff from Kathy at Gossip Rumor and Innuendo, and from Tanika, and from Paul, and apparently from that chapter as well. So yeah, Nanbro. I think that's great. I have an aunt who calls herself Nan, and that's who that put me in mind of immediately.
Losing the business.
Okay. When that refinance occurred, Dan was the only person on the mortgage?
Apparently, when we put it back in,
Okay.
this was a time where all the mortgages were being stated mortgages, and if we did it with Dan rather than with Dan and Nancy, I didn't have to show our income taxes. And since my income in the past few years had gone like that, we didn't think that was exactly what we wanted to do. So we put Dan on the mortgage because he could show a stable income.
Okay. Did you know then in 2004 that you'd fallen off the deed?
That chapter was my first true crime follow channel that I ever followed. There's something, he's got a real I don't know what it is. He's got a certain je ne sais quoi. He is utterly charming and always a good time. He always does good work.
I didn't know I'd fallen off the deed. No, I thought it wasn't on the note.
Okay. After Richard Freimark sent you this property report, and you realized what had happened, did you and Dan then take steps to put you back on the deed?
We did.
And do you remember about when that happened?
Not really.
Okay. It sounds like from what you're saying that there were times when the steadiness of Dan's income got you through various things.
It did.
you were self-employed and you had more the famine feast
Mhm.
cycle.
Mhm.
Even though you had these uneven times, did the two of you still kind of separate responsibilities where you would be primarily responsible to cover that mortgage?
Mhm.
And did that continue even after Dan was the only person on the mortgage?
Yes.
So what would happen then? How would that happen that this mortgage would get paid?
Well, I would put a deposit into Dan's account, and he had a Wells Fargo account, and then we could just slip the money from his account right into our mortgage account.
Okay. So Ms. Couch testified that when she looked at things, maybe from 2016 on to 2018, that she could see where this money moved.
Right.
Was that just always the case, that that money would move from one account to another?
Mm-hmm.
Did you eventually sell Chef du Jour?
I did.
When was that?
2005 or 2006. I
And-
think it was 6.
Okay. And by then, did the company have some debt?
Yes.
A lot.
Yes.
Were you able to, did you use the proceeds from that? You didn't go bankrupt though.
No.
Were you able to use the proceeds from that sale to pay off that debt?
We paid off a large portion of the debt.
So after you sold your company, what did you do to make a living?
I worked for Typhoon Restaurants for a while. And then we were skirting I'd signed a 5-year non-compete, and we were skirting with the non-compete because Typhoon wanted to open catering. And it really was close on whether or not I was living up to the terms of my agreement when I sold it. And so in the end, I had a guy who called me one night, and I thought it was a headhunter. And he said, and I was pretty casual because I hadn't really had a plan. And he said, I'd like you to come in for an interview tomorrow. And I hung up the phone and I had to Google to find out what it was. And I said to Dan, I said, I have a job interview tomorrow. And he goes, with whom? And I said, selling insurance. And he said, do you want to sell insurance? I said, no. And he said, why are you going to the interview? And I said, because I committed. And so I went to the interview, and that was how I shifted into selling insurance.
Did you have modest success selling insurance?
Yeah, some years were better than others.
Okay. Did you like selling life insurance?
No, I didn't like selling life insurance at all.
Was it hard?
Yes, but it was when you're selling something that is intangible like insurance versus something that's tangible like big screen color TV. People can see the need for the big screen color TV a lot faster than they can see the need for life insurance. And so sometimes they made choices that I would think, but it was hard.
Your niece Susan.
Oh God, she's moralizing about how people choose to spend their money, and she's in a position of having to take a job that she hates because of her inability to control her spending. So, okay.
Susan described the two of you actually going and knocking on people's doors.
We did. But it wasn't cold calling, knocking. I mean, we had something that they would have sent in that said they were interested. Okay. And so we could, and you call people up and say, I got your form that said you were interested. And they'd say, oh, I didn't send a form in. And you just say, yeah, pretty much you did. And so a lot of times it was easier to knock on the door and say, see your signature? Is this your signature? Okay, here I am. Let's make an appointment for when we can come back. And you didn't have to argue really, I didn't sign anything and send it in. I don't know why. You have my name and number.
So when Susan described you guys getting in the car and traveling all around the state, like to the coast and all these other places, and going and just knocking on doors, was that what it was like to sell life insurance? It was a hard scrabble. So yes. And if you sold a policy, if you're lucky enough to have someone remember that they signed the form, and then actually was willing to make another appointment for you to come back to talk about insurance, and then you were actually lucky enough to get them to say, yeah, I'll buy that policy. I'd like to think there was more skill than luck in that, but okay, yes. All right. But you sell the policy and you go away, and then like 3 months later they go, why the heck did we buy this policy? What happens then?
We're not going to die. Yeah. What happens then is they call the company. They say, we don't want this policy anymore. And the company notifies us. Hopefully, some of the companies notify you. Let me be clear here and say you have an opportunity to save this policy, and you might go back out and see them, or you might call them, and you might talk to them. However, some companies just said, oh, by the way, you had this fall apart, and therefore you owe us this many $1,000.
So you'd have to pay the commission back.
You would.
It's weird that she continued to do that job for all that time, then considering how much she hated it and how hard it was and how poorly it paid. Yeah, exactly, Billie Jean. She's got that perpetual, let me tell you how it is. Look, yeah, she slips from her giddy granny down the rabbit hole storyteller persona into her super savvy, very serious, in the know persona. Yeah, and it's all a persona, all of it.
And when you got paid a commission, did you get paid the whole commission, or did the company hold some back?
You got paid 9 months of the commission. 3 months were held back, the last 3 months of the year, so that which was kind of what was known as the bucket. And so you had money in the bucket all the time. So if the company
Little Whiskers, this is the defense. So this is direct examination by the defense. So they're nice to her, and she gets to tell her story endlessly. And for some reason, the prosecution doesn't keep objecting to the lack of relevance of her ridiculous down the rabbit hole stories. And I think that's probably because he is aware that she's going to talk herself right into prison, which is basically what she does. So that's where we are with Nancy.
suddenly says you owe this many $1,000, they have something to take it out of, you know.
Did that cause, and I don't know the answer, but Ms. Estrada has suggested that didn't really cause a lot of cash flow bumps, maybe because of the bucket, but did you experience cash flow bumps because of that commission payback?
No, Susan and I were a good team, and we were a good team together, and so we pushed each other to continue. You know, sometimes being self-motivated is hard, but together we managed to keep things rolling, and we never had big bumps in our insurance when we were working together.
So how often could you sell a couple of insurance policies to the same clients?
Oh, that's not unusual.
Okay.
It used to be, to give you an example, we've all heard of double indemnity. And double indemnity is, okay, you've got this policy. If you die in an accident, you get double the money. Insurance companies quit doing that. They may say, oh, you get 25,000, something like that. But what they really did was encourage you to have a second accidental policy, so that you could say to somebody, hey, this covers you for any cause of death, but for really only a few dollars more. As you saw in my figures, Dan and I were both covered for 250,000 for $67 a month.
Stop.
Am I
I just want, I had a different question, but that's okay.
Oh, sorry.
If you want to finish that answer, you can, but we're going to come back if it's okay.
Yeah. I'm so sorry.
No.
I'm rambling. But so they encourage you to do that. So that would be an opportunity where you would sell at the same time two policies, but you might actually come back to them later and sell them a different policy in addition.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
But to keep making money off of life insurance sales, did you need to keep finding fresh bodies?
Yes.
You need to keep buying leads.
Yes.
You need to keep knocking on new doors.
Yep.
You needed to keep finding new people.
That's an unfortunate turn of phrase in a murder trial. Huh? Needing to find fresh bodies. Yeesh.
Willing to admit that they signed the form.
Yeah.
And let you in their house.
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine going door to door like that and knocking on doors into your late 60s and 70s?
No.
What, as you and Dan are trying to figure out your solution to this financial
right
pinch, we'll call it a financial
Sure.
pinch. Let me ask you this, was it unnerving?
The pinch, yeah, I mean, this was the worst that my part of the finances had ever been. Most of the time, I'm basically a hard worker and I worked. So this was the worst it had ever been. And it seemed like a lot of things were changing. Suddenly we're looking at retirement. Suddenly we're looking at the things that maybe we have been able to skirt along. One of the things, well, I'm not going to look at her when I tell you this because she'll say I'm going down another rabbit hole. But one of the things I heard about my generation of people is that we all believe we're 14 years younger than we are. So when we get to retirement, we go, how did this happen? And so, yeah, there was lots of things we had really not taken seriously that we should have that got us there.
Was Dan worried about whether you're going to be able to keep the house during this period?
No.
Were you?
No. Both of us knew we had the availability to, if we needed to, turn to family. We had the availability if we need to both of us take another job. There were things we could have done to make this work. Losing the house was never part of the plan. It was never even something that we got close to. We always knew, even in 2017, when I went a month longer than I thought we were going to go, we knew we had worked through how we were going to do that.
Okay. So sometime after your eye surgery and as you're bumping into the 2000.
Just wanting to agree with everybody here about, Suma's saying, I'm glad you're getting to see this trial to Boss Lady. Like, yeah, she's a real fascinating. She's like, yeah, she killed him for the life insurance and for the death benefits, the Social Security and everything. So altogether, she would have ended up with 1.6 million. Yeah, losing the house was never part of the plan. And yet it seems like this whole thing with the life insurance too, right, is like, she hated this job. So why did she keep at it? Like, why not go get a job, another kind of job, or even try to get another kind of job? If you hate this one so much and it's so uphill, right? There's never kind of really any explanation of that, which seems a little odd to me. If she had been such a successful business owner and was the wife of this incredibly well-known chef about town, it seems weird that, and she went to culinary school as well, right? It seems weird that she couldn't have got a different kind of job that didn't involve, trying to sell life insurance. It's the Glenn Ross story.
2017 period. Did you and Dan sit down and try to come up with a more comprehensive plan to take you into the future?
Yes, we did.
What was your plan for making money for you?
Well, in this, I guess I'm going to tell you my in-laws saved me on this. They came to me and said, hey, look at Medicare. Can you help us with this? And so I looked at, and I had other clients as well who were changing. They like you. They're buying policies from you. They want to have your opinion on this. And so the first year that they did this, that they said, hey, we need help. And I said, hey, let me get trained so I can do it. I rushed down and took Medicare training so that I could do it. So I wrote.
I think there's some truth in that. Yeah, she does. She has that slick, surface charm that a lot of these type of people have. And she has the gift of the gab. Absolutely. Right. I can see her being actually quite an effective life insurance salesperson because she could talk for, I was going to say Canada, but she could talk for America and own the podium, And yeah, she can come across as that charming kind of, Southern granny.
12 policies that year where I was scrambling to do it.
Sure.
About 10:45. Let's take our morning break and resume at 11.
Yeah, right. Maybe she did, like, I don't know, like, obviously she got something out of the doing the life insurance thing. Um, and yeah, like it seems like she got quite adept at kind of switching and changing and buying new policies and get rid of this one and buy this one, and the sort of borrow from Peter to pay Paul type stuff that she might be able to get away with in an insurance situation like that. I wrote down where the next thing was. So here we go. They get the commissions on the policies that they sell. Then she ends up selling Medicare as well. Pretty sure this should be the point that they come back. Yeah, she's got the salesperson vibe. Yeah, she's got the gift of the gab, and that's absolutely what you
into
need
Medicare
as a
because your
salesperson.
mother-in-law and your father-in-law needed some help.
Ms. Brophy, you can take your mask back off.
Oh, thank you.
I think you were testifying that you kind of stumbled into Medicare because your mother-in-law and your father-in-law needed some help.
Yes.
And what year was that happened?
That would have been 2015.
Okay. And you probably already testified to this, but how many policies did you sell?
That year, 12.
Okay. So 10 more than your in-laws.
Right.
How did it come to be that you were able to sell the other 10?
Because some of my clients were older and going into it, and they called me, and said, "What do you know about this? Can you help us?"
Does a life insurance license, a license to sell life insurance, also allow you to sell health insurance?
Yes.
And so is that how you were able to sell Medicare with your life insurance license?
That's how you're eligible to be able to sell.
Okay.
But they won't let you sell Medicare with that. You have to take a specific Medicare test. You have to, for every Medicare provider, you have to take their qualification test. And
She's trying to make it sound like it's some big, education that she had to have, which I very much doubt. I mean, I'm sure she had to learn how their system works or whatever, but yeah.
so it is, you spend a month to 6 weeks every year getting prepared.
And I'm imagining there are a number of different Medicare products or
Yes.
different companies that sell Medicare products.
Yes.
And if you worked for company A, could you sell company B, C, D's products or just company A's?
No, you could sell B, C, and D if you took B, C, and D's qualifying test, which meant that you had passed the initial test, and then they had their own version of it, which was essentially like training you on their product.
Okay, but in 2015, did you have both the licensing and kind of the company's leeway to sell any Medicare policy?
No, I was really limited in what I could sell in 2015. But by the time 2016 came around, that had expanded greatly.
Okay. Well, before we get into the different years, I want you to describe the advantage of selling Medicare over selling life insurance.
Well, if you sell a life insurance policy, you get a big hunk of money, which you may have to pay back if they don't keep the policy. Medicare doesn't work like that. One, it's complicated. Two, the people are all over 65 and they are not eager to change 18 times. There's not a huge significant difference between each policy. There are some reasons to have a different type of policy, but once you determine that, nobody's offering a better deal. It's really regulated a lot by the government. So people don't change that much. They find something they like, they find something that works, and you keep up with them and you check in with them every year.
I genuinely cannot help wondering what is the relevance of all of this testimony and why the prosecutor doesn't object to what is the relevance of all this testimony. I mean, I could be completely off base, but I don't feel like we need all of these details to get to whatever point it is she's trying to make.
Here's the magic about Medicare. You don't get that much money for selling a Medicare policy. You can sell, a policy till the cows come home. But if I sell 12 policies in 2015 and I sell, I think 36, 50 maybe in 2016. In 2016, not only, actually it's 2017 because you don't get paid till the next year, but you get the money from 2016 all over again, plus 2017. In 2018, now if you haven't lost anybody, you get 2016, 2017, 2018. Money will all come in 2019. So you can see if you worked hard for even a short period of time, like 5 to 6 years, you could have a retirement income that would continue on and on and on. And this was like a light coming on over our heads. We said, look at this. We have a retirement income.
Aha! I have spotted the relevance. Okay. This is her defense for I didn't need to kill Dan for the money because I had this great retirement plan from selling Medicaid. Okay, it's all coming clear to me now. That's pretty much what I think is the why, what's the relevance of all of this is meant to be. That's super interesting and unsurprising, boss lady, that there was a lot of cheating. I'm not surprised. Yeah, a lot of fraudulent claims. I don't think that Nancy would be above fraudulence
if we do this right. So, for example, you could have $100,000 a year coming in retirement if you work for probably about 10 years. And you worked hard. This is not a question of you sailed through. I mean, you work hard during that period to pick that kind of money up.
But eventually you have a book of clients that would carry you through.
Yes.
As long as you made the minimal effort of taking care of them, making a call and making sure things happen the next year.
Right.
Yeah, she was going to have $100,000 a year income. She didn't need to kill Dan.
Okay.
Right.
And I think you said that in 2000, did we start in 2015?
We did.
And you sold 12 policies.
Mm-hmm.
What happened in 2016?
I'm trying to remember the number of policies I sold. It's I want to say 50, but it could have been less than that. But in 2017, when we figured out how this worked, and Dan and I had come up with the plan, I figured out enough about Medicare that I wasn't fumbling in the dark. I sold 120 policies. I was considered one of the outstanding salespeople with United Healthcare who was operating with them. And they told me this on a regular basis because I sold that many policies. And it wasn't that hard. You just had to commit to things.
What did you have to do to sell those policies? We heard about kiosks because I keep talking about them.
Right.
Tell us about a Medicare kiosk.
Well, I'm trying to remember how many days a week it was, but it ended up being a total of 6 days a week. I was in a Fred Meyer's kiosk in Oregon City. In McMinnville, I was in a Walgreens kiosk. I occasionally had picked up other kiosk short-term visits. So what you do is you cannot go and approach somebody in the grocery store and say, hey, you look like you're Medicare age. You want to talk to me? That's not done. You sit there at the kiosk, and if somebody walks by and says, my mother-in-law's on this, you can start a conversation. And as you can see, when I told you I was chatty, I'm chatty. This is an ideal situation for me. People walk by and they chat, and sometimes we talk about books, sometimes we talk about other things, but I can talk to a stranger. And so for me, it was just like, and you sat in a kiosk and they came to you. It wasn't like you had to go and knock on a door. Now, other places, and I was with Providence, and that's who I'm thinking of first, and also United Healthcare would have these people who called in and said, "We need information." And yeah, they all had in-house salespeople, but a lot of times they would have do what was known as a blitz, and they would invite you in, and you got to call these lists of people, and sometimes that would result in 7 to 10 policies. A lot of it was you had to just keep working. You had to keep, you hang up the phone and you call the next person and you talk to them long enough to see if they really have a question. And sometimes you went out and saw people who you knew weren't going to buy another policy from you, but you went out just to solve their Medicare problems.
Let me ask you
Because
this, these
Yeah,
phone
sorry.
blitzes, you're calling through people. You can't sell a Medicare policy over the phone, can you?
You could.
You could?
I would think it would be bad, but you could.
Okay.
People need to be able to know what they buy, and particularly with Medicare.
So typically, as you called through these people, if you found someone that was interested, you would actually go out to their home.
Mhm.
Where were these homes?
Everywhere. Everywhere. Mainly, I would tell you they were, but you kind of got to pick. You had call lists from various places. Like occasionally, I called Salem, but I tried not to get too far out into the boonies. But I went to the coast. I went to Vernonia. I went to, I'm coming back this way, Oregon City, and all those little towns around Oregon City, like Estacada, Malala, all those places. Down in McVinville, there's Sheridan. There's all of these places around there that you call and you say, I'm in your area, and they would say great, and you would come to see them.
Okay, but I'm not getting what is the relevance of all of this now? Hi, Carolina Hurtado. Nice to see you. Yeah, I'm not sure what is the what's the relevance of all this. I know that like at one point she goes out to a gun range out in the boonies and to practice with her gun. And this is probably part of this is probably to set up the fact that she was always driving around out in the boonies, and there's no evidence that she shot the gun, just that she was near the gun range or whatever. But I'm wondering too about I know that they're trying to set up her defense that she was making she was going to be getting $100,000 a year income, so she didn't need to kill Dan for his money. But couldn't they just show that in the financials? Like, why do they need to go on and on and on like this? It's a bit weird, right?
So would it sometimes be that you do a phone blitz in the morning and find yourself out in Estacada or Malala in the afternoon, meeting with the client that you'd called earlier?
Yes.
So it sounds like the upside of Medicare is that you can build up this book of clients that if you take care of them well, will provide an income stream all the way into your 80s.
Right.
How old are most of the people who sell Medicare?
Oh, I'm young. When we go to a Medicare meeting of people who sell Medicare, I'm the young one in the room. And it's generally men, so there's not a ton of women. And they're older. I would say old, but I'd have to include myself there as well, and so we won't go there.
She can't just answer a question, right? She can't just say yes. A lot of senior citizens sell Medicare.
So you have this job that you can do into your older age, that you could also just take the book of clients that you've developed over 5 years, hold steady, and just take care of those clients.
You could.
But if you wanted to, you could just continue doing what you're doing, heading out to kiosks and phone blitzes and build your book into your 70s.
You could, and beyond. I saw men who easily had to have been 85 to 90 who were still out working it. And the problem with just letting your book sit is you end up with the law of diminishing returns. And so people die. people change, so you have to keep pumping air into the balloon to keep it up.
Okay. So what's the downside to Medicare, selling Medicare?
It is a very short window. 90% of the policies written on Medicare are written between October 15th and December 7th. That's when you get all those repetitive ads on TV, and you just pray for Medicare season to be over so you don't have to see Joe Namath one more time.
Right? She can't just answer a question. She can't just say it's a small window of time during which you have to do all the work to make your money for the year.
But what I can tell you is that is the downside, and that is also the upside. As retirement income, you're only working 6 months out of the year to create this, and you don't have to work 365 days a year, or whatever it breaks down to with weekends and holidays.
Well, is there another disadvantage, like when you get paid?
Oh, major disadvantage. Okay. So you go out October 1st because you have a 2-week prep time. You go out October 1st, you're lining up appointments, you're doing what you can do. You work like a dog through Thanksgiving and into December the 7th. And so in the following January, your money starts to trickle in. So you've now worked since October 1 to the end of the year, and you've got not one dime. But in January, it starts to trickle in, and it trickles in January and February. But I've had it trickle in as late as April. So it's a real cash flow crunch, and you have to be prepared for that. And that was kind of what caught us up in 17, was that we knew it was going to happen. You just really aren't prepared to work as hard as you're working and realize you have no money coming in, and you have to figure out a way around that.
Did Dan,
Hi, Anders. Yeah, I've been here for just about 2 hours now. We are well into things with Nancy Brophy here. Please excuse my cough that will not go away. We've been going for about 2 hours. Nancy Brophy is a gas. Is how I will say it.
you said you had to be prepared for a cash flow crunch.
Mm-hmm.
Had the two of you talked about and thought you were prepared?
That was when our program really started coming together. Yes, we had talked about it. And yes, we came up with a solution that we hoped would work. But it really wasn't until the Medicare season had ended that we thought, yeah, this happened, and it's happened the way we planned it to happen, and we can see that the light at the end of the tunnel is not another train. So,
Well, here you're having this happy time in your house is on.
Okay, that was exciting. She got very, very animated there for a second. So yeah, crazy.
Almost in foreclosure. So what's that about?
Okay, so let's go back to what the plan was. The plan was pretty simple. I was going to start taking Medicare myself. That eased up a couple $100 out of Dan's employment benefits every month, because I'm now paying through a different source. Okay, we're going to take a loan out of his 401k, which we had done before and paid back. And we were going to take a loan to make up house payments and just get us started on getting the house ready to sell.
When did you take out this? Before we talk about the loan, I want to talk about one other thing that changed. The other thing that changed wasn't just your income.
Right.
The other thing that changed was Dan's income.
Right.
And what was that?
A friend of ours, Tanya Medlin, needed a weekend chef. And at that point, she needed somebody who could get food out on time in a reasonable hour that tasted good. And she said, do you think Dan's got any students? And I said,
Did you say weekend?
At that point, he was working days.
Okay.
And I said, Dan would probably look at doing it. And she said, "You're kidding." I said, "No." And I went home and Dan said, "Sure." And so for the first time in several years, Dan has a job where he's actually cooking. And
So the selling the house thing, right? She says the plan was never to sell the house, but then she finds out that one of her neighbors sold their property. They didn't sell the whole property, they split it up into little parcels, and they sold 2 of the 3 parcels and stayed on their own land. And so Nancy is seeing an opportunity to get rich quick situation by splitting up their property, which turns out they can't do. But yeah, she what does Billie Jane say? She just like a bossed the court. Yeah, I mean, look at her, right? She is in her in the zone, right? I think that she feels like she's winning. She reminds me a little bit of Sarah Boone, who thought she was winning and thought she was going home.
and he likes it because he actually gets to cook for somebody other than me. Not that I'm not appreciative audience, but this appeals to him. So
yeah, he likes working 2 jobs. He likes working full time Monday to Friday at the what do you call, at the Oregon Culinary Institute, and then working weekends as an actual chef so that they can pay their mortgage. He loves that. What did I do, Mary? What did I do? I feel like I just got in trouble somehow, but I don't know what she did. Too bad she didn't realize she could flip houses and make as much, right? She could have bought the Midway Mansion. Oh yeah, she's victim shaming Dan Brophy. Yeah, he was finally cooking. Later on, she goes on to brag about the fact that she never cooked a single meal in all of the years that they were together. To brag about that. Yes, you heard me right. It is kind of delusional. Indeed. Anyway, sorry. Goofing around. Here we go. I had to go shut the door.
And would Ms. Medlin give Dan some of the better shifts?
yes, we were very lucky. Tanya would say, "Come and work Christmas Eve," and it was more money. Work Christmas morning, and it was a lot more money. And we rearranged our schedule to hit the high money times.
What did you guys agree to do with the extra income that Dan was bringing in?
We had credit card debt, and Dan and
Did y'all catch that there where she was spinning the whole we were so lucky because Dan got to work on every holiday that came along? So lucky. Lucky Dan. Wow. Like, I do hope, I mean, I know she was convicted, but my God, I hope the jury caught that.
And we also had 3 things we were worried about. We didn't have car payments, but we had credit card debt for 2 credit cards, and we had a second lien on the house. And Dan was paying those off, and you could see it happening in that woman's testimony, that she could see how we went from having 20,000 to down to almost nothing in the period of about a year.
Because Dan worked 2 jobs to do it. Oh my God.
And that's what the Avamere income did for you?
That's what the Avamere income did for us.
And if Dan had stayed alive and was able to continue working at Avamere, when did you think you would be completely out of this credit card debt and the second mortgage debt?
Oh, we would have been out of that. It might have taken till December, but the second mortgage debt we planned to take care of when we sold the house. So that part would have probably been a little faster.
Okay. And now you started down a rabbit hole, and I can't remember which rabbit hole I stopped going down.
We were talking about what was the plan.
Yeah. Okay. So part of the plan was to reduce your debt.
Yep.
Part of the plan.
She genuinely is enjoying herself, right? It's absolutely bizarre behavior. And she's completely oblivious of how she's coming across, which is, it's it's the gift that keeps on giving with these people when you get them up on the stand, because they don't know how they come across in real life. They certainly don't know how they come across on the stand, and they just give themselves away. Yeah. Right. Yeah. If Dan had stayed alive. Silly Dan. Silly Dan. What a failure at life.
It was for you to make more money selling Medicare and hopefully to withstand the cash flow crunch. Part of the plan was for Dan to make more money working at Avamere.
Yes.
And you know, we've talked about this as a plan, but it sounds to me like much of this you've just sort of stumbled into.
Yes, I would. We had the plan. Okay, where it probably started was with the 401. It was with the loan from his 401k, but the rest of it kind of blossomed around that.
Okay.
So that we had the Dan knew that the credit card debt was going to kill us, and so he, you can only sustain so much interest, and so that was really his first concern was let's get rid of debt. My first concern is let's also get the house ready to be sold, because that was our major asset, and in addition, let's figure out how we're going to have an income in the future, and that turned out to be Medicare.
Okay. So this 401k loan that you've just described, you took that out in September of 2017?
That sounds about right.
And at the time you were behind on your mortgage, what, about $8,000? Somewhere between $8,000 and $9,000. I can't remember. Does that sound right?
That sounds right.
But Dan took out a loan for $35,000 against that 401k. Why take out that extra money from his 401k when you're only behind $8,000?
Well, we did it so we could get the house ready to sell. We knew we were going to have to invest some money in that backyard to get it back to where it could sell, and we knew it wasn't going to be cheap. There were also little things the house needed, a touch-up paint job, stuff that we thought we could do, but we thought the 35,000 would cover that. And our plan was he was now making these payments of $500 a month. But it wasn't really $500 a month because I had pulled out my insurance out of it. So it was really more like $300 a month he was making to pay it back. And then we were, oh, I lost my thought.
That's okay. Let me take.
So it turns out that there's no evidence at all that they were actually planning to sell the house. And that she, after the fact, right after the murder, she again it's like her same thing of she's trying to say that she had $100,000 a year income from her Medicare. She's trying to say that that they had a perfectly feasible plan, and part of it was selling the house. But it turns out there's really no evidence that that was actually the case. There is nobody else that has any that they ever spoke to about selling the house or anything like that. Like she just made it up afterwards.
Take you back.
Sure, thank you.
So you took out this loan for $35,000.
Right.
You took the loan for $35,000 out of Dan's 401k.
We did.
And we called it Dan's 401k. But did you guys ever consider this is my money, this is Dan's money?
No, that was our 401k.
Okay.
And while it doesn't look like I contributed as much, keep in mind, I'm making house payments on a house that has serious equity in it. So I see it in my thinking is that I'm contributing to our retirement in the house, in making the house payments and having equity in the house. And Dan's contributing to our retirement by having a 401k.
But of course, they had to take a second mortgage on the house because of her spending in the first place. So even though they had been living in the house for over a decade, 16 years or something like that, they did not have very much equity in the house. It was like 160K or something like that.
Okay. So at least in September of 2017, when Dan takes the loan against his 401k, it sounds like Dan is in agreement that you guys need to get the house ready to sell because he actually borrowed money to do it.
He is. And I think not everything in life is clear in terms of how you feel about something. Very seldom do you feel 100% about anything one way or the other. And I think Dan wavered back and forth on this because I think he loved the house, he loved the yard, but the excitement of I have a new yard that I can rethink the plan on. Because for Dan, I mean, his motto was life is a science project. And if somebody says life is a science project, that means that once they've kind of at least worked their way through this science project, they're willing to go on to a new one. And that is really how I thought he saw it.
Let me stop you for just a second.
Sure.
Before you ever took out this loan,
Mm-hmm.
had you and Dan had the two of you had a conversation with Richard Freimark?
We had.
And was that about subdividing your property?
It was.
What did you learn about subdividing the property?
Well, I learned that we live in a unique neighborhood. So our neighborhood is unincorporated Washington County. And what that means is we don't have curbs, we don't have streets.
The answer to the question is that it wouldn't, the way our property was set up, it wouldn't work for us, is the answer.
Lights, but we have large lots. And not only did we have large lots, so did all of our neighbors. So the neighbor just north to us had subdivided their property into 3. The neighbor further down the road was in the process of subdividing their property. There were, houses.
I can help you with a picture.
Oh,
what about
good.
that?
Hey,
Can we show Ms. Brophy exhibit 330, please, Mr. Bredden?
oh, this is good.
What is that?
This is our neighborhood.
And
Can I gesture?
Sure. You might have to stand up.
I may have to unplug too. Okay, so this is our house right here,
Can you show me where your house is? Right there. Okay.
right there. And this is 108th. At the end of this road with
That is an amazing point, Suma. Suma says, if memory serves, the only payments on which she was current was Dan's life insurance. Yeah, great point.
the little jogging is Walker Road. At the end of this road is Canyon Road, to give you an idea of where we are. 217 is right over here. So we are on the east side of 217, which also makes it desirable. Don't fall down, Nancy. So this is our house. Now, the house to the north of us is this house, which was there just like this when we moved in. Then they subdivided this and built this house. So the people who they sold this house. The people who owned all the lots at one point or another were these people. They got a job somewhere else and sold this lot in the middle to these people. Further down, and you can't really see it, but there's another subdivision here. It's an interesting neighborhood, which you can't see, but it's an interesting neighborhood because everybody has chickens or alpacas. They're like little farms right in this area.
Where are the alpacas?
The alpacas are right back here. And that.
So Ms. Alva really was feeding alpacas?
I wonder what the alpacas have to do with Dan's death. Interesting. Literally holding court. You're exactly right, Suma. She's literally holding court. She's wild, hey? Did I tell you guys? I did say she's a wild ride.
She was. She thought she was feeding llamas, but yeah. So that property is an interesting property because it runs like here. When she said it was 5 to 6 acres, she was exaggerating, but she was right from the standpoint it's bigger than all of our lots. And they have alpacas. And this house at one point or another had been a house where you could rent rooms for something. It was like, a retreat place. But you can see how this is just a unique neighborhood for Portland. And we love this neighborhood. We lived there for 20 years. We knew all the neighbors. We took Christmas cookies to all the neighbors.
So I'm looking at your property though.
Okay.
Shut up.
Your property looks like it's all cleared out. Was that photograph taken while you were living there?
No, this was
After she killed him, all the people who didn't know that she killed him, got together to help her clean up the yard. And it didn't end up costing her anything, and it would have been a significant expense.
Or it's just after it would have been sold. And we felt because our property, our house extends back slightly than this house, that what we wanted to do was rip out the garage, bring the driveway all the way back, and not divide it into three, but divide it into two pieces of property so that everybody had an adequate yard.
Okay, can you sit or you got more to say?
No, I I can sit.
Okay. I didn't mean it that way. It sounded bad.
That's okay.
I'll ask you to roll over in a minute. Okay.
Right? She's in her safe space. She is having a grand old time up there. She thinks she's going home. She's been waiting. I was saying the same thing, Carolina Hurtado. She reminds me of Robert Tellis. That complete oblivious, like all I have to do is yeah, it's a cackle. All I have to do is tell my story. And she has no idea how she comes across. The other person she reminds me of is Jodi Arias, with the insane blabbermouth stories that she would just go off on insane rants about things when the answer to the question was yes on Thursday. And then she would tell you her whole life story, all about beginning with the time that in Brownies, she didn't have her, 25 cents to pay when she got there. And she was so embarrassed. And then so later, she always felt like when she didn't have enough money, she always felt a lot of shame. And so that's why she always, this is Nancy Brophy too.
So that was that's what your thinking was regarding subdivision.
That was.
And had one of your neighbors who was just a resident, Mr. Frymark's a commercial realtor.
He is.
Had one of your neighbors who had some residential real estate experience looked at the property?
They had.
And after getting all this input from other people, did you have, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but did you have a notion about how much more you could sell that property for if you had it not subdivided, so to speak, but ready to be subdivided?
Right.
And how much more could you make?
We expected it to sell in the neighborhood of 700,000+.
So it ends up that turns out that like I've never actually spoke seriously to anybody about subdividing it.
Okay. If you were able to do all that.
Right.
Were you going to be able to do any of that with the state of the backyard of the back lot?
Not at all. That absolutely had to be dealt with. And even though we talk about the backyard, it creeped to the side yards as well. It, it was, the yard needed work.
Was that something that we know that Dan's really, that he loves being outdoors, that he loves being in gardens. At this point, he's what, 63, going on 64. Would he have been able to do that?
He wouldn't have been able to do the bulk of the work. But he would have been able to continue to garden in an area that was cleaned up.
Okay, but could he have cleaned up that property so that it could be sold?
No.
Did he know that?
Yes. We discussed several options. One of the options we discussed was bringing in goats to get rid of our blackberries. And we looked into that quite seriously for several weeks and decided against that. And so then we started looking for who turned out to be the yard warriors.
Throughout this trial, there's been a suggestion that Dan maybe didn't know that there was a plan to sell, or maybe Dan wasn't in favor of a plan to sell, or maybe Dan had decided not to sell. You said your house was your primary asset.
It was.
Was it also your primary debt?
Yes, it was.
And how long do you think it would take to pay off that mortgage, the mortgage that you had on the house, if you didn't sell the house?
I would have been in my 80s and he would have been in his late 70s.
Okay. Did it seem reasonable to either one of you that you would keep working at the pace that you were working in 2017, 2018, at that pace that you were working when you were 80 or in your 80s and Dan was in his late 70s?
No.
If one of you got sick, while the mortgage was still due. Would the other one have been able to carry the mortgage by themselves?
It would have been incredibly difficult.
You have a degree in economics,
I do.
but it wouldn't require a degree in economics to know that selling the house and downsizing was a reasonable choice.
Yes, but there was also that is absolutely true. And you didn't have to have a degree in economics, nor did you have to be able to teach math. Everybody in the family could figure out what was going wrong with our plan. But our plan had been built in from the very beginning. When we looked at the house and we bought it, I was 49. I was 49, and we have a flight of stairs that goes from the first floor to the second floor, and a flight of stairs that goes from the first floor to the basement. And we knew, with a history of medical issues in our family, we knew that we would not have been able to keep this house in the old age. We talked about that in 1999.
Didn't she say earlier? I know she did, that there was never the plan to sell the house.
Because of the flights of stairs and the fact that it was not set up for people who in their 80s would be climbing those stairs. And they were narrow stairs because it had originally been attic stairs.
Okay, so the house, just the structure of the house itself was going to create challenges in old age. But my question to you is, you said that, yeah, if Dan could do the math, did Dan do the math?
Dan did the math.
We talked about kind of the state of that garden that had been Dan's pride and joy. By 2017, 2018, was Dan enjoying his garden like he had in previous years?
No, he still gardened, but
Right.
it wasn't the same. And also his gardening had changed because at that point he had picked up, this must have happened also when we talk about our income going up, Dan picked up cucumbers, and a couple of the restaurants in town pickle their own cucumbers. So we would grow little cucumbers to be pickled, and Dan had this whole little concession thing going where he planted 2,000 pounds of cucumbers a year for these restaurants, and he would go and harvest and take them down, and go and harvest and take them down, and go and harvest and take them down. So that was also,
The man literally never stopped working to try to feed this woman's lifestyle.
how but it was a struggle, more and more of a struggle, as we kept losing more and more of the backyard.
Okay, so he didn't have the same area in which to garden.
Right.
You talked about taking out this loan against the, and right around the same time that you took out the loan, did you also rent a storage unit?
Yes.
And where was that storage unit? No, the name of the company. Was it Public Storage?
It could have been, yes.
Okay. Now, the state has suggested that you secretly rented this storage unit. Is it true that that was a secret?
Not that I know of, because
I'm going to stop you for just
Okay.
a second, okay? I want to show you something. I want to show you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit 212. Got your glasses on, good. And I just want you to read this. Don't read it out loud, just read it to yourself.
Okay.
Is that an exchange between you and Dan Brophy?
Yes, it is.
A text message
Objection.
exchange?
To have the jury step out for just 1 second.
All right, for the jury?
I don't know which text message we're talking about right now. I don't
Could we
know if,
put it up on the screen? Would that be possible?
um,
I'm not sure either.
okay,
Can
yes,
you-
why don't we do
Which
that?
sub exhibit is it?
212.2 or 212.1, is that right, Ms. Weimer?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might as well go through all
Oh,
I
that's
can't,
like, that's teeny weeny.
I, okay, hold on, I can read that on my screen.
Yeah, I can read it out loud if that helps. Yeah, let's do that. Let's make each individual one big if you would.
Oh, sorry, I missed it.
Okay, I've now had a chance to read it, and just so the record reflects, the initial message, which is sent from a phone number listed as Nancy, says our yard guy is coming by after 2 today. And there's a reply from a number associated with Dan saying, okay, does that mean we wait to visit storage? And then there's a response to that which says yes. All right, I'm not sure what you were about to ask.
Okay, so that was about, so they had asked for anybody who missed it, the defense had asked Nancy, said the prosecution were trying to say that storage was a secret from Dan. So those texts were meant to prove that the storage that Nancy had was not a secret from Dan. So that's where we are.
Asked Mrs. Brophy, but the state objected. So let me hear the state's objection first.
The objection overall is hearsay, Your Honor, because these are out-of-court statements made by Nancy and by Dan. Specifically, of course, the one that I'm focusing on is the one made by Dan. I believe the defense is attempting to get this into rebut some sort of assertion that the state made. First of all, I don't know that we made that assertion, but second of all, that's not a hearsay exception anyway. So the statement by Dan saying, okay, does that mean that we want to wait to visit storage, being offered for the truth of his knowledge of the storage unit? And so we would object to that.
All right, and Ms. Maxfield. Go
Well, Your
ahead.
Honor, the statement itself is, does that mean that we wait? Whether they wait or not is irrelevant. This is offered to show both that Nancy Brophy shared the knowledge with Dan Brophy that they had a storage unit and that Dan Brophy was aware of the storage unit. It goes to Dan Brophy's knowledge, Dan Brophy's state of mind, and it rebuts the inference that's occurred during the course of this trial that this was somehow Nancy Brophy's storage unit and one of which Dan Brophy didn't use and was unaware.
All right, I agree. I do think it's not being offered to show the proof of the matter asserted. The matter asserted is Dan's questioning if they were going to wait or not wait to visit storage. I think the purpose for which it's being offered and the purpose for which I'll allow it is to show he has knowledge that a storage unit exists, which I honestly don't recall, Mr. Overstreet, if it was directly implied that he was unaware of the storage unit, but I think there's been enough of an inference that I will allow this. But I would ask, are there other text messages that defense is wanting to go through with this
Yeah, we
witness?
Pardon me?
Because I think we should address them now rather than use the jury each and every time.
Your Honor, I would ask that the statements, I understand you're ruling on Mr. Brophy's text message, but the ones that appear in blue from Nancy, I would ask that those not be presented to the jury as well. Yes.
Let me let me ask the defense what their argument would be for that.
Well, I'm not sure whether, I think whether the yard guy is coming after 2 is irrelevant to what this is being offered to show. This is an exchange between.
Okay, I'm going to let this play for a few minutes and feed the dog because he needs to eat at a specific time, and that time is now. So that's what I'll be doing for a few minutes.
Between husband and wife, in which Ms. Brophy is talking about the yard guy coming after 2, and Dan Brophy, he doesn't sound shocked. who's the yard guy, but he also is acknowledging the fact that there's a storage unit. But we also have a couple of other text messages that demonstrate Dan Brophy's knowledge and acquiescence with respect to the yard work.
All right. I'm going to allow this first one, and I think just contextually there has to be, I'll call it the rule of completeness. I do think just standing by itself, okay, does that mean we wait to visit storage, would just seem odd. For contextual purposes, I'll allow this first exchange.
And Your Honor, I understand your ruling, but may I just make a record that
You can,
under
of
State
course.
v. Tooley, the rule of completeness does not apply.
Well, having tried that case, I think it does, and I'll allow it. All right.
Never good when the other guy tried the case. I think there's two other exhibits that we should maybe look at right now before we go on with Ms. Brophy, and I think they are called, are they 212 and 212.2 and 212.3, each one referencing the yard warriors.
I'm going to assume there's an ongoing objection to these, but if the state wishes to state additional grounds for objection, I'll hear that too, but let me read this one. So this is one that says, from a number associated with Mrs. Brophy, I don't know where the yard people are. Maybe they don't work in the rain, but the maids are here already. So you ought to be able to come home with regular time. I'm getting my hair cut at 3 o'clock. Hard to keep that burn bar going in the rain. Okay, so what is this being offered for?
Your Honor, again, it's offered to show both Dan's acknowledgement of the yard work that's being done and the fact that he's not resistant to the plan, and the fact that he can even understand why the yard work isn't going to carry on because they can't keep the burn barrel going. It goes again to show both his awareness and his acquiescence in the fact that they have yard warriors. But the other thing that it proves is that there is a delay in the yard efforts due to weather.
What's the relevance of that?
Well, the state has suggested that there was not much yard work that was done between December and April, and that really the yard work starts to pick up rapidly after Mr. Brophy has died and Ms. Brophy is left as the sole decider. From that, they've suggested that Dan Brophy did not want the yard work done and that Ms. Brophy had to kill him so that she could get the yard done because he was resistant to that effort. And there was even questioning of Mr. Denny on that point, and he explained, no, it was just too wet for us to get our machinery in there during certain parts of the year. But the state, with the questioning of Mr. Denny, had inferred that this really had to do with Mr. Brophy's resistance and Ms. Brophy needing to get Dan Brophy out of the way so that she could continue to clean up the property.
All right, the state want to put any more objections on the record for this one?
Well, I would just, what I didn't state on the last one was I do believe there's a relevancy objection on this one as well to hearsay. Also, I would just note that the testimony, not the lawyer's questions that were presented to the jury, was that Dan was aware of the plan and went along with it, was part of it. That was what the testimony was. So I don't know what the defense is attempting to rebut when their own witness stated that about Dan as well.
Anders is asking, did Dan work with gardening? So he was a chef. I'm not sure if you knew that. So he was a chef at the Oregon Culinary Institute, where he taught young people to also be chefs. And then he also worked as an actual chef. And then he also grew things in his garden, and he had chickens, and he sold eggs, and he sold produce from the garden. Part of which was that he sold mini cucumbers to multiple different places that made pickles with them. So yes. And their garden was being kind of overtaken by blackberry brambles and stuff because they had kind of let it go, and it just
kept on shrinking in size as it was overtaken by brambles and junk. And he was a mushroom specialist, Sima is informing us. Yeah. Dan was like really accomplished guy. Yeah, a proper mensch, a proper decent community stand-up guy. Absolutely.
All right, I'm going to hold off on this one for just a moment. Let's see the next.
212.3.
Hey, come over here, bud. Come over here. Come on. Do it over here.
Okay. All right, it's in that.
Nope, stay there.
All right, and does the state have an objection to this one?
Same objection, John.
All right, and this one is just to make sure I've got the full thing. This is just the
Just
one.
Dan Brophy. It's just Dan Brophy, and again, it goes to show that, can you show that big again, Mr. Breton, so that I can see it?
All right, I've read it. It says, so this is from a number associated with Dan saying, got it, Steve, in a bit. Are the yard warriors in action today? And I think, Ms. Maxfield, you're saying this shows that he kind of has an awareness of and an acquiescence to yard work taking place.
That's correct. And again, the statement, are the yard warriors in action today, is asserting nothing. It's a question. It's not an assertion of fact.
Right.
Are you guys interested in all this, or should I fast forward to the part where she is testifying again? What do you think? I'm thinking I would maybe fast forward to the part where she's testifying again, if other people are down with that. So, yeah. You guys are, there's a little bit of a, yeah, okay, I'm going to move it ahead. There we go.
Biddy, can we go bubble by bubble? Would that work? Can you read that, Ms. Brophy?
Yes.
So let's begin. Can you tell me who this exchange is between?
I am texting Dan with this information.
Okay, and Dan's responding?
Yes.
All right. So, let's see, 2/12/2017. So it's December of 2017, and you are texting Dan, our yard guy is coming by after 2 o'clock today.
Mm-hmm.
And Dan's response? Okay, does that mean we wait to visit storage? And your reply? Yes. So my first question is, you had this storage unit at public storage. Was that a storage unit that you both used, both you and Dan?
Yes, it was.
So he was aware of this storage unit?
Yes. And we purposefully located it between his work at Avamere and our house. So it was really right down the road from Avamere.
After borrowing, you can take that down, Mr. Breton, thank you. After borrowing against the 401k, did you and Dan start looking for a professional landscaper to hire?
Yes, we did.
And how many landscapers did you contact?
3 total.
Okay. What were the answers?
No, and oh, wow, yeah.
Okay. I'm guessing, but who was, oh, wow, yeah?
That was Mr. Denny.
Okay. When did you hire him?
Well, I actually tried to hire him before he could get away. Once he said, oh, yeah, he figured he hadn't looked that closely.
Do you think that the defense lawyer is trying to elicit this quirky personality because she thinks that it's a winning quirky personality? Or is she just doing the best she can with this ridiculous defendant that she has? What do you guys think?
But I'm going to say December of 2017, but it could have been late November.
Okay. In December, or even November, December of 2017, I don't remember what the weather was like, but was it possible to get heavy machinery onto that lot?
No. Uh, we had a driveway.
Or are you going to talk now?
Sorry, isn't no a complete sentence? Right? I think that's Suma's saying she thinks she's just going with it because fighting it will cause trouble, like Owens. Yeah, what are you going to do, right? And boss lady thinks that she thinks she's sweet and endearing. I'm not sure if you mean that Nancy thinks that Nancy is sweet and endearing, or if Nancy's lawyer thinks that Nancy is sweet and endearing. Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell, right? I mean, what are you going to do? It's like trying to. It just puts me in mind of that that song from The Sound of Music. How do you solve a problem like a Maria? How do you catch a cloud and pin it down? How do you get her to stay and listen to all you say? How do you catch a wave upon the sand? Oh, how do you solve a problem like Maria? How do you catch a moonbeam in your hand? But there's a point where they call her a will-o'-the-wisp, a whippoorwill, a will-o'-the-wisp, a clown. But yeah, I don't think that you can contain her. So either way, whatever the defense lawyer thinks is probably
Just
irrelevant.
about geography?
Yes.
Let me ask you this.
Okay, sorry.
Did Mr. Danny have restrictions about when he was willing to come onto the property based on weather?
Yes, he did.
And did you have any control over that?
No.
Okay.
No, you misunderstand me, Billie Jean. We do not think she's sweet and endearing. We think that she thinks that she comes across as sweet and endearing. And we were trying to decide whether the lawyer agrees with Nancy's assessment of herself or if she is just stuck with this crazy woman for a client. And Suma is fully on the side of Nancy thinks she's great. Her lawyer is probably drinking scotch in her mind. And I would I would probably agree with that version of things.
So when would he come and when wouldn't he come?
Well, he pretty much came when he wanted to come, but when he said he wouldn't come was with the heavy equipment when it was still wet soil because we would chop up the yard too much.
Okay. So did they start though in December of 2017?
Yes, they did.
Were they doing this heavy machinery type work or something different?
No, it was more the smaller items that could be done without the heavy equipment.
Okay. How did Dan Brophy react to James Denny?
I think he was. I think his hackles were up in the beginning. I think he was concerned about what was going on in the yard. I think he wanted somebody who was as concerned about his yard as he was, and I think Mr. Denny was the perfect man for that job because he and Dan saw eye to eye on things. And I would say, after Mr. Denny had been there for a while, that in fact he and Dan ended up being friends over it because they both. He would say this is important, and it was like Mr. Denny leaped on that and said this will be taken care of.
Let me
Sorry.
back up and just ask you to look at Defendant's Exhibit. First of all, Your Honor, I forgot to move to admit Defendant's Exhibit 212.1, so I would do so at this point.
All right, that'll be admitted.
Now let me show you, Ms. Brophy, what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit 212.2 and ask if you can identify that.
Yes.
Again, is this an exchange between you and Dan Brophy?
Yes.
Can we make that a little bigger, Mr. Breton? Thank you. And who's writing in the beginning?
I'm writing to Dan.
And what's the date? Are we in December again of 2017?
We're 2 days later.
Okay. And so by now, have you hired James Denny?
We have.
And can you just read your part of this exchange?
I don't know where the yard people are. Maybe they don't work in the rain, but the maids are here already, so you ought to be able to come home at the regular time. I'm getting my hair cut at 3 o'clock.
Okay. And what's Mr. Brophy's response?
Hard to keep that burn barrel going in this rain.
Okay. So the first time they came, did they have a burn barrel?
They established a burn barrel. I think that they perhaps had been there a little more by this time. They had a burn barrel so that they didn't have to haul off as much of the wood and what have you from the trees.
So is she popular in prison, do you think? Is she like, does this little facade of the sweet little old lady kind of work? And does she have little like younger women prisoners that kind of gather around her? I can't imagine being stuck in a small room with her. Yeah, that was what's part of what was making me think, what's it like being stuck in a cell with her, or stuck in a pod, or having to share a bunk with her, or whatever. I mean, she's pretty irrepressible, right? Your personality doesn't change just because you go to prison.
So yeah, we had a burn barrel going in the beginning quite a bit. By the end, not at all.
All right. So now I want to show you what's been marked as defense exhibit. Oh, Your Honor, I move to admit 212.2.
All right, it will be admitted.
And now I want to show you, Ms. Brophy, what's been marked as defendant's exhibit 212.3.
I mean, if Nancy Brophy, if Donna Adelson, right, can win over some of the youngsters, then Nancy is a lot more personable to my mind than Donna Adelson, who comes across very brittly, very brittle. Anyway, Sumo says, my guess is things move too fast for me. My guess is she's not the only insufferable old broad there. Yeah, no, probably not. She probably corners them like rats while regaling them with her romance stories. I assume that she has to corner some people, but these people, they need like scapegoats and stuff to survive, right? They need other people in a different way than the rest of us do. So she has to find a way. She shot him in the back, and then she turned him over and shot him in the chest. That's how she killed him. In cold blood. She snuck up behind him. Yes, and they all are jealous of Sarah, boss lady. They're all jealous of Sarah Boone. So yeah, we know about the the jealous old ladies in prison and their mirror neurons. Remember? You didn't see Donna? What do you mean you didn't see the trial? Yeah, she had a big dramatic outburst when they read the guilty verdict. Hey, Driftless. I was listening to what do you think? What do you mean? I went last night and listened to Dr. G on Corey Richins afterwards, like everybody said, and he said a whole bunch of times that he kept commenting on her looking down, and how that was indicative of her lack of confidence, that she had lost confidence. And I was wondering if that was true, or if it was her responding to literally the judge saying, if you feel like you can't control yourself, your facial expressions, look down. So I, as much as I appreciate Dr. G, I couldn't tell if I don't know if he heard the judge say that. So it seemed like it might not be right. Because she doesn't strike me as the sort of person who would publicly show a lack of confidence like that she would let her mask slip like that in public. I could be wrong, but that's anyway. We're almost done here with this video for today, and I'm getting tired. So yeah, we got like a couple of minutes to go. So let's just finish up here.
And this time, who begins the exchange?
Dan begins the exchange.
And what does it say?
Got it. See you in a bit.
Yeah.
Are the Yard Warriors in action today?
And what's the date on that one?
That's January 17th, so that's about a month after.
Okay, so did Dan have a name for James Denny and Tamara Alva?
The Yard Warriors.
Okay. And is that how he referred to them always when the two of you were exchanging?
Yes.
Yeah. You said that Dan in the beginning.
No, I didn't. Did John Smith is asking me if I watched Sky Lazaro last night on Courtroom Confidential. I did not. I will have to watch that. I was very curious to see. I was very curious about her attendance at the trial and what it signified in terms of her support to Corey, because Corey claimed that they didn't have a falling out, that it was just conflict of interest. But I can't help thinking that once that walk the dog letter thing came out, that it was very much a falling out. So I am. Yo, boss lady says it was uneventful. Okay, it was interesting. Well, I'm gonna have to check it out because I was very much interested to hear what she had to say. Little Whiskers is saying, people say Corey had her head down because she was in shock. I say she was pissed off and refused to acknowledge the judge. Yeah, I don't get the, I didn't get the lack of confidence vibe. I mean, she certainly looked scared. She looked properly petrified to me. But I just don't see her allowing her mask to fall that much. Sky is still working on the federal case. Is she, Suma? Oh, okay. Okay, so that's interesting. There's so much I don't actually know. But I didn't follow the case really closely. I knew all the broad strokes of the case, and then I followed the trial pretty closely. But yeah, there's a lot I don't know. And I was curious about Sky and about her attendance at the trial and what that signified. So if she's still working on the federal case, then I guess that means that she was there in support of Corey. So interesting.
Was a little bit wary, but grew to appreciate Mr. Denny. Was it your sense that he actually liked James Denny and Tamara Alvey?
Yes, it was. I thought he found them entertaining, and they shared a lot of the same interest in terms of the yard, and I thought they got along really well.
Relevance.
You can take that down. Thank you, Mr. Britton. Oh, I move to admit Defendant's Exhibit 212.3, Your Honor.
All right, it'll be admitted.
Yeah, it's hard to know. Like I wasn't sure how to take Sky Lazaro. Like I was trying to form an opinion, but without knowing what she thought in terms of Corey's guilt or innocence or being on her team or what. I was finding it hard to form an opinion.
So the two of you had decided to get the house ready to sell. Did you have a plan about what you would do after you sold it?
Not in the beginning. It was vague, and I think that was part of what made Dan. Dan's a guy who likes to have a plan, and I can fly by the seat of my pants much better than he can. But all that kind of changed.
Says the woman who plotted and planned very carefully how to murder her husband so that she could live off of his money and not have to fly by the seat of her pants. Lying sack of lies.
About the same area in the same time frame. We went to an open house that Delilah.
Whoa.
Oh, I'm too far. So
you're going. We have 1 minute.
Oh, sorry. We won't go there.
And so sorry. I can bring you back to this because that's a longer exchange.
Sure.
Okay.
Right now, we have just over a minute. Why don't we take our lunch break now and be back on the record at 1:30?
Okay, yeah, so that's just the first part of the defense that goes on again in the afternoon. I'm not sure if the prosecution. Hi, Beth. Hey, you got here just in time for me to say goodnight to everybody. Sorry you missed it. We were watching Nancy Brophy make a complete numpty of herself on the stand with the with the defense, right? With the defense doing the direct examination, so she's all comfy and in her safe space. She can lie by the seat of her pants. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, Beth. Yeah, I don't know what the deal is with, like, I don't know what's happening with YouTube. I mean, my views have gone down by around about 98%. And I'm not really sure what explains that, other than, like, Lauren Matthias was a super hot topic when I first started. And a lot of the people that were watching for that reason, and now they're not really interested in other true crime content, or if they changed the algorithm, or I just don't know. I don't know what's going on. So I appreciate that that you showed up at all. So yeah, that's great. Yeah, so we got through the morning part of her being direct examined by her best friend, the defense lawyer. Yeah, right. I mean, I know that some of it is content for sure, Suma. Like, and I'm not surprised. I was well aware at the time that I came in on a wave, and that HTC content was super hot. People were gobbling it up like crazy. So, and in many ways I was really lucky, because I was able to get monetized very quickly, and so I'm still monetized even though my views are down. But yeah, I'm glad to see you too, Beth. And I'm happy with the way the channel is going anyway. I'm very happy with the core group of people that come and hang out, and chat and stuff. I feel like we're having a good time here. So I appreciate you all again. I am out of steam now. It's 7 o'clock. I've been on here for nearly 3 hours. And yeah, so she's fun. Yeah, that's what I do, Betty. I put stuff on and then listen while I'm doing my housework, or doing my dishes, or cooking, or doing whatever, walking the dog. Yeah, so once again, thank you all for. Boss Lady, have you noticed that in your subscription list the live shows are no longer at the top? Yeah, okay, sorry, I'm not going to get caught up in that conversation. So yeah, thank you guys for coming. I'm always grateful for everybody. If you can remember to like and subscribe and share and hit all those buttons on your way out. Yeah, I'm okay with it. I'm not super stressed out or anything, but I think, like, there were people that were, like, even Germany. I feel like, where did even Germany? There were just some people that were kind of always around that I haven't seen for a while. And then people are saying they never got notifications and stuff like that. So I don't know. I'm not super stressed about it. I'm still having a good time, and I don't want to grow too fast. I feel like I would just be overwhelmed by all of that anyway. I'm not up to managing a big channel. I'm happy doing my little baby steps thing over here. So Mary says it helps to like the video after it's been posted, not just during the live. You know what also helps is if you actually make comments in the comment section and not just in the chat. But yeah, every bit of engagement helps the channel, and I appreciate all of it. So you guys do whatever level of engaging you're comfortable with, and thank you so much for coming over. Grizzly started with Petito. Yeah, Tanika's 2 cents started with Sarah Boone. Watts the Obsession, we assume, started with Watts. Something motivates us to get on, to get online at some point and stop yelling at our computer monitors. So yeah, thanks again, everybody. And I'm gonna carry on tomorrow with the second part of this. And we will see you there if you're there, and if not, we will see you another time. Thanks again. Good night.